Chapter 399. Starting from the toe bitten by the snake, the black color quickly spread. In the blink of an eye, Meow Meow's entire foot had turned black, and it had completely lost control. This poison was undoubtedly the poison of chaos. For Meow Meow, who was adept at fine control, it was a fatal poison. It knew that if it lost control of its leg, it would not be long before it would be cut down by the sole undertaker, or it would be sacrificed as a sacrifice. Of course, it hoped for the latter. After all, it meant that it could preserve its remaining heat, and the magic elf summoned with it as a sacrifice would definitely be able to continue working hard with its part in it. So before that, since it could not escape the fate of leaving the stage, there was no need to hold back the trump card that it had deliberately kept hidden all this time. Meow Meow's gaze turned cold. Its half-closed eyelids suddenly opened, and the sword in its left hand stabbed out like lightning. And as expected, the sole undertaker immediately swung its scythe to parry. The moment the sword and blade clashed, Meow Meow activated its sure-kill skill, Deceit. Clang! In that instant, Soul Undertaker felt that the hand that was holding the scythe suddenly lost its strength, and the strength from the sword increased exponentially. First website: https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP Meow Meow borrowed the force and continued to stab forward. The tip of the sword drew sparks on the scythe's blade, and with a shake, it parried the scythe's blade. Then, it drove straight into the Soul Undertaker's chest. Its chest, made of pale white bones, was cut open by the tip of the sword, and the terrifying explosive force crushed that part of the bones into powder. The Soul Undertaker was heavily injured in an instant. Soul Undertaker. This sudden turn of events caused Tom Nixon's expression to darken. He hurriedly issued an order to the Soul Undertaker, which only had a sliver of HP left. Then, the Soul Undertaker's falling body suddenly stopped. Its two skeletal arms suddenly spread open, and a deep green light was released from its eyes. A howl like the cry of a ghost sounded in the wind. The scattered magic in the surroundings was attracted by a mysterious force and condensed into a blurry soul in the air. The bloodthirsty snake man and the rotten slime. The soul with the outline of the two magic fairies roared as if it had been reborn, and it pounced on Meow Meow amidst the howl. Meow Meow only had time to pull out its sword before the two magic fairies' souls pierced through it. Its body stiffened, and it only felt that its body became light, as if something was taken away by the two souls. When it lowered its head again, its lower body, which had been bitten by the two sly snakes, had become transparent. Meow Meow Meow's consciousness, and opened its eyes, returned. Meow 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 Meow, and the Soul Undertaker's ultimate in its hand was its most powerful, and wanted to use its ultimate, and was trying it. Meow Meow Meow. However, seeing that Meow Meow only needed one more strike to send the Soul Undertaker back to the underworld, Tom Nixon was forced to issue an order. Meow it. Meow Meow, Meow Meow Meow, Meow Meow of the Mimo Meow. Meow 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 Meow. After the two magic fairy souls sent Meow Meow away, they returned to their origin. Near the blue side summoning zone, there were only a few Soul Undertaker, and a few secretive snakes, that were fading away. In this situation, the Heidi Road beast reached out and grabbed the single scabbard floating in the air. It couldn't help but grin, and with a twist of its wrist, the sword turned and instantly slashed horizontally. Crash! The Soul Undertaker's fragile bones were instantly sliced apart by the single scabbardous blade as if it was made of rotten wood. This 5-star magic fairy, summoned through a special ritual, lost its vitality. At this moment, everyone's attention was involuntarily attracted. On the commentary platform, Zach Wilson cried out, "Magic is zero." Dake Dimming knew that Tom Nixon had the double whale of the dead, but he still ordered the magic fairy to deal a fatal blow to the Soul Undertaker. If I remember correctly, double whale of the dead. Tom Nixon's roar covered Zach Wilson's voice, and the secret instrument card, which had been in a semi-activated state, was instantly activated. A mournful cry went straight to the sky, sharp and ear-piercing. At the place where the Soul Undertaker died, the dissipated magic instantly condensed and gave birth to a ghost-like gray ghost. The grey ghost's body suddenly elongated like a balloon that was pulled open, and there was a gust of cold wind in its empty eyes. The high-road beast only looked up and found that the top of its head was already grey. But there was a charming light in its eyes, and the smile on its mouth was especially charming. Meow heart suit. It's really the same type as Sarah's secret instrument card, Asbin's Words of Death. Dake's heart was set, and he couldn't help but show a smile similar to the high-road beast. The card lineup that Tom Nixon had shown so far was inexplicably similar to Saraswati's card lineup. Rotten Slime's ultimate skill, Feign Death. Words of Death's secret instrument card, Double Whale of the Dead. Both could be found in Sarah's card lineup. Asbin's Words of Death was to release the soul of the dead and use its soul as a medium to torture the opponent. In fact, it was to transform the soul of the dead into an evil spirit and possess the opponent to cause damage. This Double Whale of the Dead was indeed the same. In other words, it only needed to deal with the evil spirit transformed by the Soul Undertaker. It wasn't an instant death type of Cursed Words of Death. Tom Nixon deliberately opened this secret instrument card to show, in addition to disturbing Dake's thoughts, it was also to shock. That was because he knew very well that the secret ritual card wasn't really a fatal blow. And after Double Whale of the Dead was activated, there was a very awkward effect. Even if the opponent's undying species died, this secret instrument card would also be activated. In other words, if Dake summoned the Dream Demon, it could also trigger Double Whale of the Dead. With his heart set, Dake calmly opened the 2 magic cards that he had drawn in the 4th round. Wishful Dice, Hawkman Wrestling. Then he immediately began to summon the Hawkman Wrestling. Originally, after Meow Meow was bitten by the mysterious snake, he had thought of offering Meow Meow as a sacrifice and summon the big milk can with the trash slime. But he didn't expect Meow Meow to be taken away by the Soul Undertaker. Without Meow Meow, the only 3-star magic elf that could be sacrificed on the field was Kettle Pot. But he drew the Hawkman Wrestling in the 4th round. Therefore, he chose to keep Kettle Pot for the time being and summon the Hawkman Wrestling first, preparing to sacrifice it when it was appropriate. Tom Nixon also got 2 new magic cards. But unlike Dake, he didn't summon them immediately. Instead, he focused more on the field. After the Double Whale of the Dead was triggered, the ghost-like grey ghost pounced on the high-road beast below with a sharp howl. Its body was like a grey fog. Almost in the blink of an eye, it pounced in front of the high-road beast. Like the Soul Undertaker's killing skill, this grey ghost also had the characteristic of ignoring defense. But the high-road beast sneered and waved the single scabbard fiercely. The sword wind immediately dispersed the approaching grey fog. Then it slid back and nimbly somersaulted in the air, dodging the grey ghost's attack. Although the evil ghost howled and the cold wind blew, but as long as it had a body, it could dodge. The high-road beast was mentally prepared before the last hit, so it naturally couldn't be hit by it. And the grey ghost obviously didn't exist for long. With just one confrontation, it had already become transparent. Seeing this, Tom Nixon on the blue side's platform suddenly took a deep breath and reached out to draw a card again. The 5th round had arrived. Hawkman Wrestling, Attack. The moment the round changed, Dake had already summoned the Hawkman Wrestling. Hatcha! After the Hawkman Wrestling appeared, it showed off its muscles and immediately flapped its wings to accelerate its flight. Its target was the blue side's magic ball. Using a flying magic elf to chase after the magic ball to consume the opponent's mental strength could be said to be a common tactic in a magic duel. Dake used this tactic very well in the last duel. But Tom Nixon was clearly on his guard. When the Hawkman Wrestling flew over, it had already begun to summon a new magic elf. His luck was good. In these 2 rounds, a total of 4 magic cards were drawn, and there were 2 magic elf cards that could be summoned. In the name of Tom Nixon, Magic Summoning, Blood-Winged Lizardman. Card name, Blood-Winged Lizardman. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Subhuman. Attribute, Evil. Magic power, 1300. Attack, 1500. Defense, 1400. Killing skills, Blood Rage, Bloodthirst. Like the Blood-Winged Lion King, the Blood-Winged Lizard Man was also one of the best among the 3-star magic elves. It had blood wings on its back, red skin, a lizard's head and tail, and its whole body was covered with scales. And it also had a killing skill, Blood Rage. But unlike the Blood-Winged Lion King, the Blood-Winged Lizard Man also had another killing skill, Bloodthirst. Tom Nixon's core magic elf, Bloodthirsty Ophidian, also had this killing skill. The magic elf with the killing skill, Bloodthirst, could absorb the opponent's blood or vitality by piercing its blood-sucking fangs into the opponent's blood vessels. When placed in the magic elf, it would absorb magic power. It could strengthen itself with Blood Rage and replenish its consumption with Bloodthirst. That was what Tom Nixon had done in his duel with Mary Bond. The Blood-Winged Lizard Man, which was nearly 2 meters tall, looked even taller when it spread its blood wings. In front of the Hawkman Wrestling, which was only 0.8 meters tall, it was like a giant bullying the weak. But the Hawkman Wrestling never lost in terms of momentum. And the 3 measurements of the 2 sides were actually not much different. Although the Blood-Winged Lizard Man was thick and strong, but the Hawkman Wrestling was also short and fierce. The 2 3-star magic elves collided in the air in the blue half of the area and started a fierce battle. Blood-Winged Lizard Man, Blood Rage. Hawkman Wrestling, Feather Dance. The 2 duelists gave orders on the spur of the moment. The Blood-Winged Lizard Man roared violently, and blood mist shot out from between its scales. In an instant, it was enveloped by the blood mist, and its muscles swelled like rocks. Its attack and defense had obviously increased. And the Hawkman Wrestling shot out countless feathers from its wings. When those feathers entered the Blood-Winged Lizardman's body, they were instantly dyed red by the blood mist. And the feathers that were dyed with blood also became heavy. They fluttered down and mixed with the white feathers, causing the Blood-Winged Lizardman's vision to be even worse. The Hawkman Wrestling took advantage of it. It circled around the field and used its wings as a blade, slashing fiercely at its blood-colored bat wings. The Blood-Winged Lizardman's wings were injured, and it immediately lost its balance. The Hawkman Wrestling suddenly accelerated and rushed towards the blue magic ball. At this moment, Tom Nixon's disadvantage was actually already great. Of the magic spirits that he had summoned one after another, only this Blood-Winged Lizard Man had not been killed. And Dake Dimeng had 3 magic spirits. No, 4 of them were present. If it wasn't for the corpse decay curse that could fly, Tom Nixon's situation would be even worse. But now, he still had a lot of room for maneuver. Before the magic power of the magic ball's life barrier reached 0, the duelists always had the possibility of reversing the situation. Tom Nixon's expression was solemn as he took out a magic card from the 5th round. Then, he suddenly swiped the card and shouted, "In the name of Tom Nixon, I summon the Dragon Blood Potion." The appearance of this magic card instantly moved the audience outside the field. Pan Duola Doragon, who specialized in dragon-type magic spirits, and Knight Baron Noah Sharp were both clearly shocked. Dragons were a very aggressive species in biology. Life with mixed dragon-type bloodline usually had very obvious dragon-type characteristics after being born, such as dragon horns, dragon scales, dragon wings, and dragon tail. Only with the continuous dilution of the bloodline would these dragon-type characteristics gradually fade away. The so-called Dragon Blood Potion was a product based on these characteristics, using dragon blood to infect and change the bloodline of the species. The external manifestation was the change of race or attribute. Dragon Blood Potion had different effects according to the source of dragon blood, but they were generally of this type. After Tom Nixon activated the Dragon Blood Potion, a stream of light shot out from the card and hit the head of the Blood-Winged Lizard Man in the blink of an eye, turning into a potion bottle filled with glowing blood. Tom Nixon's Dragon Blood Potion could be effective on blood control type magic spirits, especially snakes and lizards. Whether it was the bloodthirsty Ophidian from before or the Blood-Winged Lizard Man now, they were the perfect recipients of his Dragon Blood Potion. As the Dragon Blood Potion shattered, the dragon blood that exuded a powerful aura spilled out. Most of the dragon blood potion soaked into the blood-winged lizardman's head, and a small part of the dragon blood potion mixed into the blood mist and spread throughout its body. Roar! The blood-winged lizardman, which was originally in the blood rage state, had extremely active blood in its body and almost immediately absorbed the dragon blood potion's effect. The two scales on its head were pushed open, and the red dragon horns protruded out of its skin like red jade. The scales on the surface of its body were also rapidly strengthened. Its body shape gradually changed. Its shoulder muscles bulged, and its arms and lower limbs became extremely thick. It quickly dragonized. Card name, Blood-Winged Dragon Man. Type, Elf card. Level, ****. Race, Subhuman. Attribute, Dragon. Magic power, 1600. Attack, 1800. Defense, 1700. Killing skills, Blood Rage, Bloodthirst, Dragon Breath. Although its star level did not change, the Blood-Winged Lizardman had completely become a Blood-Winged Dragon Man. Although its race was still a subhuman, its attribute had changed from evil to dragon. Its magic power, attack, and defense had all increased by a full 300 points. In the killing skills column, there was an additional killing skill of the dragon species, Dragon Breath. The Blood-Winged Dragon Man, that had completely changed, had red eyes and veins at the corners of its eyes. It was abnormally ferocious, and its rationality was probably gone. However, throwing away his rationality, releasing his instincts, and fighting in the most ferocious and ruthless manner was Tom Nixon's fighting style. Roar! There was another angry roar. The Blood-Winged Dragon Man suddenly turned around and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The blazing blood flames attacked the Hawkman that was attacking the blue square magic ball from behind. However, the phenomenon when it was dragonized was so intense that the Hawkman could not detect it. In that short period of time, the Hawkman had already split open a hole in the blue square magic ball's life barrier. At this moment, it had succeeded and retreated extremely quickly. However, its tail feathers were still ignited by the dragon breath, and it was in a sorry state when it fled. Magic power, blue 5900, 4521. Blood-Winged Dragon Man. Tom Nixon immediately reminded in a deep voice. The Blood-Winged Dragon Man spread its wings, and blood mist surged all over its body. It instantly caught up to the Hawkman, and its thick and long dragon claws stretched out like lightning, tearing the Hawkman's wings apart. Ah! The Hawkman let out a scream and fell from the sky. Under the enhancement of Blood Rage, the Blood-Winged Dragon Man's attack was at least over 2,000. For the Hawkman with 1,200 defense and 1,100 magic power, it was almost a sure kill attack. However, in reality, that claw did not grab it. Looking at its claws full of feathers, the Blood-Winged Dragon Man with red eyes was stunned for a moment. However, the Hawkman actually fell down, as if he had been seriously injured. This delay allowed Dake to buy the last few seconds. There's one 1-star Magic Guide sprite and one 3-star Magic Guide sprite. With Trash Slime and Hawkman as sacrifices, I'll sacrifice the summoning. Come out, Big Milk Can. Amidst the fierce roar, a bright white light emerged from Kettle Pot's shell. The corners of the Hawkman's mouth curled up, and at the same time, it turned into light. As for the Milk Can magic card that was held up high by Dark, it was emitting an even hotter white light. 3 rays of light intertwined in the air, and under the driving of magic power, they drew a complicated sacrificial summoning array. A pink little milk cow appeared from the huge sacrificial summoning array. It landed in the red summoning area, looked up at the Blood-Winged Dragon Man, then glanced at Kettle Pot and the red magic guide ball behind it, and immediately understood. Then, the big milk can turned around, hugged the red magic guide ball in its arms, and mooed twice. It was obviously a response to Dake's expectations. It's the 5th round. Dake glanced at the countdown on the panel and reached out to touch the deck. The 5th round was about to end, but he did not touch a card. At this time, the situation was stabilized, so he could feel at ease to touch a card. Although the Big Milk Can's defense could not be called absolute defense, it was still impregnable. At least, that blood-winged dragon man would have a hard time breaking through. But after the completion of the defense, it lacked the ability to fight in the air. The single scabbard still needed to be paired with a hero to unleash its true power. Lion Beast, or Diru Beast. After calling out the names of the two magic guide fairies in his heart, Dake suddenly touched a card. But it seemed that the bond between him and the magic guide fairies was still lacking. Magic Beast, Ivan, Pride 3. The two magic guide cards that appeared in a set seemed to strongly show the son Ivan's desire to appear. Dake put the two magic guide cards on the right side of his hand and waited for a while. Tick. The 30-second countdown for the 5th round reached 0, and the 30-second countdown for the 6th round began. Dake did not hesitate and touched a card again. Pride 2, Old, Pride 2, New. The appearance of the old and new Pride 2 made Dark laugh uncontrollably in the midst of the intense duel. He immediately looked up. Of course, Tom Nixon would not let the blood-winged dragon man be idle. Once Blood Rage was activated, it could not be deactivated. The blood-winged dragon man's magic was quickly depleting, and it did not have time to idle. The blood-winged dragon man that was enraged by the wrestling Hawkman's escape quickly swooped down from the sky with a thick blood-red fog, completely ignoring the Diru Beast and Kettle Kettle. It launched a furious air attack on the big milk can that was summoned using the wrestling Hawkman as one of the sacrifices. But when the big milk can felt the frenzied aura of the blood-winged dragon man, it curled up its body and hugged the magic guide ball tightly. Its body emitted a metallic glow that instantly enveloped its entire body, forming an indestructible metal ball. Ultimate skill. Round transformation. Under the effect of round transformation, the Big Milk Can's 2,000 points of defense increased by 50%, reaching a terrifying 3,000 points. And different from other magic guide fairies that had 3,000 points of defense, it had a 360 degrees spherical defense with no blind spots. Basically, there were no weak spots. Therefore, when the blood-winged dragon man opened its huge mouth in anger and bit the big milk can with its sharp teeth in front of Kettle Kettle, Kettle Kettle's expression was calm. Clang! There was a crisp sound that sounded like metal clashing. Cracks appeared on the two teeth of the blood-winged dragon man. It immediately let out a scream and raised its head back. This scene made Tom Nixon, who was on the blue team's platform, frown. The continuous use of Blood Rage was based on the fact that Bloodlust could be used. But since the blood-winged dragon man activated Blood Rage, it had not bitten a single piece of flesh. Of course, it could not replenish any magic. If this continued, there would be no need for Dake to make a move. This blood-winged dragon man would be gone. And in the blue team summoning area, the sword-wielding black cat did an extremely despicable thing. Tom did not know if it was Dake Diming's instructions or if the Black Dirk Road Beast did it on its own. But the Black Dirk Road Beast was indeed guarding the blue team's summoning area, which was his summoning area. It did not return to the red team's summoning area. This kind of guarding behavior made it impossible for him to summon the first-tier magic guide fairy in the summoning area, unless it could fly in the air. Otherwise, the moment the first-tier magic guide fairy was summoned, it would be mercilessly slaughtered by the Dirk Road Beast. It's too despicable. Tom Nixon looked at the magic card he had just touched, and his frown deepened. At this moment, in the circular belt, Mike Owen looked at the black cat that had also evolved from the little demon beast. He could not help but think of the demon beast. During the street duel on Valentine's Day, he locked himself behind the triple bronze door, and the demon beast stood guard in front of him, killing the first-tier magic spirits he summoned one by one. And now, this magic elf that was essentially the same was actually doing the same thing in an official duel. Don't say, it was quite cool to watch. Sure enough, the nature of humans is to take pleasure in other people's misfortune. Mike Owen reflected on himself and glanced at Angus Jeffrey, who was gritting his teeth. He was even more amused. Building your own happiness on other people's pain, this was life. Life was unpredictable. A cat's life was unpredictable. The Black Dirk Road Beast was bored to death as it played with the holy sword in its hand. It could feel the holy aura hidden in the holy sword. It was an aura that was completely opposite to its attribute. But so what? Wasn't it still being played by the Black Dirk Road Beast? With a sweet smile, the Black Dirk Road Beast slashed 3 times in the direction of the red team's summoning area. On the blue team's platform, Tom Nixon's face was even darker. He had to use the interval between the Blood-Winged Dragon Manus attacks to lay the groundwork for the summoning. He needed to waste a precious magic card to lay out a platform in the air before he could start the summoning. But fortunately, his magic card was comprehensive enough. Therefore, when the 6th round began, when the Blood-Winged Dragon Man almost broke its teeth, Tom Nixon activated a magic card. In an instant, a stream of blood swam out from the card surface. Following that strand of blood, even more blood gushed out. Soon, it became a general trend like a river. Tom Nixon used this magic card that could create a pit on the ground, blood pool. He drew a magic array in the air and built a platform of blood condensation. This kind of use beyond the magic card itself made the professors who were watching the duel amazed. In particular, the kind-looking old professor who had brought Tom Nixon back from the slums was stroking his long beard and nodding his head repeatedly. Obviously, he was very satisfied with Tom Nixon's current growth. This old professor would not be biased towards this duel between students, but after witnessing his students' outstanding growth, he could not help but be happy. Don't poke, don't poke. After successfully building a blood platform that was almost on the same level as the contestants' platform, Tom Nixon could finally start to summon the next first-tier magic fairy. But at the same time, Dake had also successfully summoned Fantasy Beast, Ibu. The appearance of the little fox-like magic fairy made Tom Nixon instantly vigilant. He stopped chanting and suddenly shouted, "Blood-Winged Dragon Man, change target! Change target!" The Blood-Winged Dragon Man, that was drowned by blood and anger, turned its head hard to look around. What entered its eyes was Kettle, protected by a hard shell at its feet, and little Ibu that Dake deliberately summoned in the corner of the red team's summoning area. Ibu quietly nestled in the corner and carefully observed its surroundings, trying its best to hide its presence. Squeak squeak. 6 seconds. It only needed a short 6 seconds. Ibu could be reborn and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. But it was still noticed by the Blood-Winged Dragon Man. The Blood-Winged Dragon Man suddenly opened its eyes wide. It finally smelled the scent of a soft persimmon. The moment it confirmed its target, it suddenly opened its mouth and prepared to spit out the dragon breath that had an extremely short cooldown to burn that little thing into charcoal. Bzzz. At this moment, Kettle's eyes suddenly exploded with white light as it used its final killing move, Trick of Strength. Protecting its family was its mission. Bzzz. Bzzz. Just as the Blood-Winged Dragon Man spat out the dragon breath, it suddenly felt a huge force applied to its feet. It was lifted up by the sudden burst of power, and the dragon breath it spat out immediately lost its aim and floated over little Ibu's head. Then, the emblem of pride appeared on Ibu-chan's forehead. A dark golden light shone down and enveloped its entire body. Its body became slender in the light, and its fluffy tail grew into a slender cat's tail. At the end of the tail, it was forked like a cat's tail. Its slender neck suddenly raised, showing an elegant and noble posture. Ibu jumped lightly. When it jumped out of the light, it had already evolved from Ibu into the incarnation of pride, Ibu the sun. It was only 4 in the afternoon. Although the sun was declining, it was still very bright. The red gem on Ibu's forehead flashed slightly, and its magic power increased again. Kilo Bean. It was still summoned. Tom Nixon's heart sank. Once the Ibu the sun, that could use telekinesis, appeared, his magic conducting ball would no longer be safe. I have to speed up. He suddenly waved the magic conducting card in his hand. 3 seconds later, a brand new magic conducting fairy appeared on the blood platform. And the Heidi Road beast that was angered by the blood platform had already turned around and ran like the wind toward the Blood-Winged Dragon Man that was still on the ground. Blood-Winged Dragon Man, fight! Tom Nixon suddenly roared after the successful summoning. Under normal circumstances, he would order the blood-winged dragon man to fly and avoid the pincer attack of the two 4-star magic-conducting fairies. But he was Tom Nixon. And in this crisis, the blood-winged dragon man seemed to resonate with him, and the blood mist on its body surged and boiled. It suddenly stomped and kicked Hoo-Hoo, who had lost the effect of Power Trick, away, and then rushed toward the nearby Ibu the Sun, like a crazy demon. Ibu the Sun's gaze was arrogant, and the gem on its forehead shone brightly. It was about to use its telekinesis. But Dake's order came instantly. Ibu the Sun, foresee the future. It did not hesitate to change its skill and used foresee the future. And when it finished casting, the blood-winged dragon man was already close. But it did not panic at all. It instantly activated telekinesis and swung away the dragon claws that were swinging at it. The blood-winged dragon man's dragon claws naturally fell down to its knees, and it was very destructive when swung. But Ibu the Sun was not a magic guide fairy that would fight it head-on. After using telekinesis to swat away the blood-winged dragon man's dragon claws, Ibu the Sun immediately jumped to the side. When it landed, it had already turned around and rushed toward the Heidi Road beast. The blood-winged dragon man let out a fierce roar and instantly turned its body. A thick dragon tail swung out, and the shadow of the tail's tip was reflected on Ibu the Sun. Ibu the Sun, whose line of sight was not on the blood-winged dragon man at all, seemed to have eyes on the back of its head. The moment the dragon tail swept over, its 4 limbs flew up and it jumped high. That ferocious dragon tail swept past his feet. It landed lightly and continued to move forward with an elegant posture. That calmness and composure was like that of the blonde youth on the red team's platform, and people could not help but have a good impression of him. The blood-winged dragon man missed again and immediately chased after it. In the blood-rage state, its speed was even faster than Ibu the Sun. But the Heidi Road beast on the other side also ran over. In an instant, it crossed paths with Ibu the Sun and swung its holy sword at the blood-winged dragon man. It had the feeling of a brave dragon slaying. Just like that, Ibu the Sun and the Heidi Road beast completed a strategic exchange. The Heidi Road beast excitedly swung its holy sword and fought with the fierce and brutal bloodthirsty dragon man. And Ibu the Sun suddenly condensed telekinesis and shot it at the blue magic conducting ball in the air. Same old trick. I'm not Stuart. But on the blue team's platform, Tom Nixon let out a cold laugh. His magic conducting summoning had been completed once again. On that blood platform, there were 2 magic conducting fairies. And this time, he would use these 2 magic conducting fairies as sacrifices to perform a sacrificial summoning. Unlike Stuart Phone's skill level, although Tom Nixon's sacrificial summoning had not reached the limit of 3 seconds, it was not far off. He only needed 5 seconds to complete the sacrificial summoning. 5 seconds was actually a very short time. Even in a magic conducting duel where every second mattered, relying on 2 3-star magic conducting fairies that had already been successfully summoned, it was easy to win. Moreover, of the 2 3-star magic conducting fairies he had summoned, one of them was the defense-specialized Death Guard. Card name, Death Guard. Type, Fairy Card. Level, *****. Race, Undying. Attribute, Dark. Magic Power, 1000. Attack, 0. Defense, 1250. Sure Kill Skill, Death Guard. This was an extremely special magic conducting fairy. Its entire body was just a leg bone of an unknown creature. But this leg bone was as thick as a water bucket and about 2 meters tall. There was no soul at the bottom, but there was a black sticky substance like a tentacle. On the body of the deathly white leg bone, there were extremely complicated black patterns carved on it, making it look like a totem pole that was commonly seen in beastmen tribes. But it was this white bone totem pole that had the same black sticky substance at the top as at the bottom. In that sticky substance, there were 2 eyes that were tilted up like a snail's. This was the Death Guard. Its movement speed was basically 0, it had no attack ability, it only had 1000 magic power, and its defense was only 1250, not even 1500. It even had a single sure kill skill. But it was this single sure-kill skill that gave the Death Guard such a strong defense ability. When Son Ivan's telekinesis shot up like an arrow, the Death Guard immediately activated its only sure-kill skill under Tom Nixon's command, Death Guard. Thus, with it as the center, layer after layer of transparent barriers spread out in all directions, forming a huge barrier that was pieced together by countless polygons, blocking the telekinesis outside. The only effect of Death Guard was damage halved. And it was a passive skill of the Death Guard, a permanent sure-kill skill that did not consume any energy. Its strength was based on the Death Guard's defense. This meant that as long as the damage did not exceed 2500, it would not be able to cause any damage to it. And Son Ivan's telekinesis was actually a sure-kill skill with very low damage. Even with the power of the sun, it was very difficult to exceed the critical value of Death Guard. Such a strong defense specialized magic conducting fairy was simply a super guardian of the magic conducting ball. If it was Dake, he would most likely make the best use of it and would not immediately sacrifice it. However, Tom Nixon did not have any regrets at all. After the Death Guard had only blocked a telekinesis attack, he used it as a sacrifice for the sacrificial summoning. When the Death Guard was sacrificed, Dake could not help but feel a little surprised. But that was after the round had changed. Amidst the screams of the blood-winged dragon person, the duel entered the 7th round. Battle Stage 7. 30s. Tom Nixon was still performing the final summoning. Dake took the 2 magic conducting cards from the top of the deck into his hands. Then, Tom Nixon successfully completed the sacrificial summoning spell. The 2 3-star magic conducting fairies on the blood platform turned into light. As the huge sacrificial summoning array unfolded in the air, there was no longer a single magic conducting fairy that belonged to Tom Nixon in the field. But the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. 10000/12,000 tomorrow at noon. Let's update 4 to 8,000. Vote for the guaranteed monthly ticket, Blade, and so on, meow. Chapter 400. The common logic of sacrificial summoning was to exchange a large number of low-star magic elves for a small number of high-star magic elves. Most of the mage trainers pursued high quality in a magic duel, not high quantity. Tom Nixon was the same. Therefore, when he successfully completed the sacrificial summoning, he did not feel that there were no other magic elves in the arena. He raised his head slightly and looked at the 6-star magic elves that appeared from the huge sacrificial summoning array. He even felt excited when he heard the thunderous cheers from the audience outside the arena. What did it feel like to successfully summon a high-star magic elven that could determine the outcome of a magic duel? Perhaps this was it. A woo! It was like a mournful wolf howl that came from the dark forest. A blood-red demon wolf that was more than 3 meters tall condensed in the dark red magic light. Remember the website, Vipkanchu. VIP. When it appeared, it opened its arms, stood upright, and let out a mournful howl toward the sky. There was a bloody glow in its red eyes. Its slightly thin physique made it look even more ferocious. A wisp of blood cloud floated into the sky. Card name, Blood Moon Demon Wolf. Type, Elf card. Level, 4all. Race, Devil. Attribute, Dark. Magic power, 2500. Attack, 3000. Defense, 2400. Ultimate skill, Bloodlust, Moon of Sky, Parasitic Magic Seed, a 6-star orange card with 3 ultimate skills. This was the trump card that Tom Nixon was proud of. With a terrifying attack power of 3000 points, a decent defense of 2400 points, and a high magic power of 2500 points, this Blood Moon Demon Wolf could dominate among the 6-star magic elves just based on its basic attributes. After Tom Nixon successfully summoned the Bloody Moon Demonic Wolf, he slammed his hand on the table and raised his voice. Use the sure kill skill, Sky Full Moon. The howl of the Blood Moon Demon Wolf became more and more intense, as if it was going to break through the clouds and reverberate in the arena. All of a sudden, a thick bloody glow emerged from its body. A blood-red pillar soared into the sky with him as the center, dyeing the sky above the arena dark red. The sudden dimming of the light made Sun Ibu squint, and the red gem on its forehead quickly dimmed. However, the black road beast gradually became excited in this dark red and tipsy environment, and the holy sword in its hand began to move. Killing a lizard that had been infected with dragon blood was not enough to satisfy it. Under everyone's gazes, a crimson moon appeared above the crimson blood curtain that covered the sky. The crimson full moon exuded a terrifying aura. If one stared at it for too long, they would feel as if their souls would be sucked away. It's actually an arena technique? Dake Dimming frowned as he added the 2 magic cards he had drawn into his hand. Originally, he didn't have to worry too much about Tom Nixon's sacrificial summons with the Black Road Beast holding the single scabbard. However, this summoned 6-star magic guiding fairy seemed to be unexpectedly powerful. This kind of arena technique that could change the heavens and the earth was not something an ordinary magic guiding fairy could master. The Moon of Sky? He lowered his head and looked at the magic guiding cards in his hand. The 2 new magic guiding cards were Fairy Ibu, Secretary of Magic. One was a 4-star magic guide fairy, and the other was a 2-star magic guide fairy. Among them, Fairy Ibu could perfectly adapt to the arena changed by the Moon of Sky. However, to summon a 4-star magic guiding fairy, one needed a 1-star magic guiding fairy, a 3-star magic guiding fairy, or 2 2-star magic guiding fairies. However, Dake didn't have enough sacrificial offerings in his hand or in the arena. Unless he used a 4-star magic guiding fairy as a sacrifice. However, the 3 4-star magic guiding fairies in the arena were not inferior to Fairy Ibu in terms of usefulness. If he only coveted the moon power, that had twice the power under the moonlight, Dake didn't need it. Then I'll keep it for now. Dake looked at Kettle, who had already used 3 sure kill skills. A 3-star Kettle and a 2-star Secretary of Magic were enough to summon a 5-star magic guiding fairy. If he could draw the lion beast in the next round, the first hero would be able to go on stage. The Blood Moon Demon Wolf's appearance and sure kill skills took a long time. Dake didn't take the opportunity to attack. Instead, he used this time to think. The 30-second countdown for the 7th round quietly passed. Seeing that the 7th round was about to end, Tom Nixon, who had also drawn a card, finally raised his head and ordered the Blood Moon Demon Wolf to attack. The Blood Moon Demon Wolf suddenly lowered its head, and its dark red eyes swept across the arena. It paused for a moment on the single scabbard in the Black Dirk Road Beast's hand before it turned to Sun Ibu, who was closest to it, and let out a disgusted roar. Then, it exerted force and stomped down, crushing a corner of the blood platform. Its entire body naturally fell from the top. When its crooked body landed on the ground, it was less than 20 meters away from the Sun Ibu. The 2 sun and moon magic guiding fairies suddenly looked at each other from not too far away. Killing intent brewed in their eyes. Hachi! The Blood Moon Demon Wolf opened its bloody mouth, and saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth onto the ground. Dida! In that instant, it was as if the sound of a gunshot could be heard. A storm of blood appeared under the Blood Moon Demon Wolf's feet, and its body instantly turned into a blood-red arrow that shot towards Sun Ibu. However, Sun Ibu was not afraid. His eyes were even filled with disdain. Awoo! The distance between the two was instantly reduced to 5 or 6 meters. A strong bloodthirsty intent appeared in the Blood Moon Demon Wolf's eyes. It raised its right claw, and its sharp fingernails were especially terrifying under the reflection of the blood moon. Delebian! Sun Ibu, who had perfect control of time, suddenly let out a soft cry. Between him and the Blood Moon Demon Wolf, a golden light of unknown origin suddenly flashed. That golden ball of light, delayed by 30 seconds, seemed to have crossed through time and space. In front of the Blood Moon Demon Wolf, it instantly exploded. In that instant, the Blood Moon Demon Wolf's eyes widened to the limit. Only confusion appeared in the depths of its eyes. On the blue team's platform, Tom Nixon slammed his palm on the table, causing his palm to hurt. It's another attack that's like a great prophecy spell. On the commentary platform, Zach Wilson suddenly let out a high-pitched cry. The audience continuously exclaimed, Angus Jeffrey glared up at Zach Wilson from the ring. But of course, Zach Wilson couldn't have noticed his insignificant glare in the crowd. The explosion of future foresight caused the Blood Moon Demon Wolf, whose aura had reached its peak, to be forcefully blown back. Her soft long hair was all messed up by the explosion. When it stood up in a sorry state, the feeling it gave off was completely different. If it was a ferocious and bloodthirsty demon wolf a moment ago, then now it was at most a red husky with rabies. Son Ibu, come back. Dake Dimming reached out and drew a card at the same time as he gave the order. Tick. The 8th round had arrived. Son Ibu, who received the order, immediately returned to the red side and reorganized. Dake, on the other hand, drew a new magic card. Lion Beast, Lion Beast, Lion Beast. Lion Beast. Flash spell, Lion Beast, responded to his call and appeared in his hand. Dake was delighted and immediately summoned Sorcerer Secretary. Sorcerer Secretary's identity as a magic fairy had been exposed. Directly summoning it in the air was no longer feasible. However, it was a fairy, without a fixed form. In the presence of other magic fairies, especially Kettle, he only needed to summon it on Kettle's back. The summoned Sorcerer Secretary immediately shrank back into Kettle's shell. Thus, the 5-star offering was ready. Lion Beast was the only 5-star magic fairy card in Dake's hand. It was deeply trusted. Dake raised his head slightly while waiting for the cooldown to end. He saw Tom Nixon summoning with an ugly expression. However, he did not summon a magic fairy. Instead, he summoned an equipment card. In the name of Tom Nixon, I summon the wings of the evil spirit. A ray of black light drilled out of the card and shot toward the Blood Moon Demon Wolf. Then, a pair of ghostly black wings sprouted from the back of the Blood Moon Demonic Wolf, giving the Blood Moon Demonic Wolf the ability to fly. Dake suddenly realized that many duelists had prepared this type of equipment card. Is it to chase after the magic ball in the air? Should I prepare a magic guide elf of this type as well? The moment this thought flashed through his mind, he had already begun to chant the sacrificial summoning spell. The casting time of the spell was 9 seconds, which took up almost a third of the time. After that, because the summoning spell went into cooldown, it could not be summoned for another 9 seconds. Thus, for duelists who could not summon quickly enough, he had to use it carefully. However, Dake was full of trust in his magic fairy. Just as he was about to enter the summoning mode, his eyelids suddenly twitched. He saw that above the dark red sky, above his head, a dark red pillar of light shot out from the moon of the sky, and poured into the body of the Blood Moon Demon Wolf. The originally dispirited Blood Moon Demon Wolf was bathed in the light of the blood moon. Its ferocious and terrifying aura was reignited, rising steadily. Then, its limbs and joints changed under the moonlight. From its original hunched posture, it suddenly straightened and completely transformed into the classic character of the demon race, a werewolf. Werewolf was originally a general term for the werewolves among the orcs. However, as the demonized werewolves of the demon race became more and more notorious, the werewolves of the orcs were ignored. When people mentioned werewolves, they would think of the demonized werewolves of the demon race. They were two completely different creatures in terms of their roots. After transforming under the blood moon, the Blood Moon Werewolf's basic attributes had clearly increased. It would not be inferior even to a 7-star magic fairy. This was the main reason why Tom Nixon regarded it as his trump card. In fact, as long as the Moon of the Sky was used, this 6-star magic fairy of the 2nd tier could be seen as a 7-star magic fairy of the 3rd tier. Roar! With a long howl, the Blood Moon Werewolf opened its evil soul wings and charged forward again. This time, without the future foresight blocking it, the Blood Moon Werewolf instantly flew across half of the field. However, in the middle of the field, it welcomed its opponent. The single scabbard in its hand rushed up like the wind with the excitement of fighting a strong enemy. The Blood Moon Werewolf's basic attributes were all inferior to the Blood Moon Werewolf, but its attack power was quite close with the single scabbard's buff. Therefore, if it wanted to fight against the Blood Moon Werewolf, it could only attack in place of defense. It could not be caught by the Blood Moon werewolf, even once. This was like dancing on the edge of a cliff, but it made the Blood Moon werewolf even more excited. The collision between the long sword and the steel claws occurred. Bang, bang, bang. After 3 moves, the Blood Moon werewolf, that had transformed into a werewolf, finally gained the upper hand. Even though the Blood Moon werewolf blocked in time, it was still sent flying along with its sword. However, it somersaulted in the air and successfully landed on the ground. Although it slid back a few meters, it was not seriously injured. However, the corners of its mouth curled up. It knew the difference between the 2 sides. This made it reluctantly touch the single scabbard in its hand and throw it into the sky. The lion beast, that appeared in the sacrificial summoning circle, grabbed the holy sword's hilt and landed on the ground. It was majestic and eye-catching. Dake had finally completed the sacrificial summoning. He used Kettle and Magician Secretary as sacrifices to summon a 5-star magic fairy, Lion Beast. Card name, Lion Beast. Type, Fairy card. Level, 4all. Race, Bird Beast. Attribute, Fighting. Magic power, 2300. Attack, 2300. Defense, 2300. Killing skills, Beast King Fist, Lion King Pill, Heart of Justice. The moment the single scabbard was in its hand, the lion beast's aura changed, and its attack rose to 3,800 points. It waved its hand and brandished its sword. Heart of Justice suddenly lit up. The holy power inside the single scabbard resonated with its soul. A sword cry rushed into the sky, and the holy light burst into the sky. It tore the dark red sky in half, allowing the sun to shine down again. The lion beast raised the holy sword high, and the holy light kept flashing. The corpse decay curse was like a thin piece of paper in front of the holy light. It was dispelled without any resistance. The single scabbard immediately recovered, and the scabbard let out a light cry. It was quite carefree. The Blood Moon werewolf, that was illuminated by the holy light, couldn't help but narrow its eyes. It was just like its owner's expression. 14000/12000. Continue at night. Handcards, Flash Curse, Fairy Ibu, Pride 2 Old, Pride 2 New, Wishful Dice, Push Curse, Silence Potion. Chapter 401. This wasn't the first time Dake Dimeng had activated the holy characteristic of the single scabbard in the Easter Duel Festival. For Tom Nixon, whose goal from the start was to be the final victor, it was naturally impossible for him not to have carefully observed Dake's competition. It was precisely because he had observed it that Tom Nixon was wary of it and immediately used the Corpse Decay curse of the Corpse Decay slime to weaken it. But from the looks of it, the Corpse Decay curse had clearly been broken, and the sword had also recovered to its peak state. The reason behind this might be discovered if one looked into it carefully. But Tom Nixon didn't have the time now. He only realized that there might be a special connection between the lion beast and the scabbard that could trigger a certain characteristic of the scabbard. And it was that characteristic that broke the Corpse Decay curse. In addition, the 5-star magic guide spirit, Lion Beast, holding the single scabbard, probably already had the power to resist his Blood Moon werewolf. However, he still had to try before he knew the truth. Remember, https://m Vipkanchu. VIP. If he really couldn't take care of it, then he could only use that move. Tom Nixon actually didn't notice that the Blood Moon werewolf had a trace of pain on its face when it was hit by the holy light. But even if he noticed it, he wouldn't change his actions. Blood Moon werewolf, charge. After receiving the order, the Blood Moon werewolf, in the middle of the arena, exerted force under its feet and instantly shot out. After seeing the Blood Moon werewolf's actions, the lion beast only swung the single scabbard down and sped up from the front. The Blood Moon werewolf had the evil soul wings to increase its speed and was extremely fast. Although the lion beast wasn't slow, it was still slightly inferior. Both sides suddenly collided in the red side's summoning area. The lion beast raised its sword and slashed with all its might. The blood moon werewolf suddenly flapped its wings and flew high, actually dodging this slash. Its two steel-like wolf claws grabbed the lion beast's head. Roar! At that moment, the lion beast roared angrily, and the holy light flowed from the single scabbard sword to its body and suddenly exploded. The blood moon werewolf's wolf claws were illuminated by the light at an extremely close distance. Its hands were immediately boiling hot as if they were about to melt, and its blade-like nails became soft. As a result, its body stopped in midair. The lion beast didn't stop at all. It raised its sword and slashed at the bloody moon werewolf's chest. Werewolf instinctively used its wolf claws to slap the sword. Before the single scabbard could exert its strength, it used it to fly up into the air and hurriedly escaped. It fong asterisk s asterisk of the scabbard asterisk 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 s asterisk 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 the was it scarred asterisk scarred? It T of it scabbard scabbard. It dimming asterisk asterisk scabbard dimming dim asterisk 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 s asterisk 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 dim dimming asterisk T dimming dimming dimming. It DG dimming. What's going on? On the blue team's platform, Tom Nixon's pupils shrunk. He was in disbelief. He wasn't shocked by the lion beast's strength. Instead, he was shocked by the blood moon werewolf's retreat. Although the blood moon werewolf's transformation under Sky Full Moon wouldn't be as irrational as when it used blood rage, it would still trigger its ferocious nature, causing its bloodthirsty instincts to erupt. When facing an enemy, it would definitely fight to the death. However, just now, the blood moon werewolf was really scared and retreated. Now, it was flying in the air with obvious fear. Is it because of that sword? Or is there something wrong with the lion beast? Tom Nixon's eyes flickered. The moment he touched his card, he made a decision. Use Demon Parasite Seed. The duel entered the 9th round. The blood moon werewolf pounced on the lion beast under Tom Nixon's command. Tom Nixon, who had realized that something was wrong, urgently summoned the lion beast. The draw of the 9th round made him even more anxious. Demon Parasite Seed? The moment Dake heard the name of this sure-kill skill, he suddenly had a bad feeling. He pressed his hand on the deck, and before he touched the card, he immediately warned, "Lion Beast, be careful." However, the blood moon werewolf had already pounced on it. The lion beast slightly raised its head and stared into the blood moon werewolf's blood-red eyes. The blood moon werewolf's performance gave the lion beast the illusion that it also had intelligence. However, when the lion beast looked into the blood moon werewolf's eyes, it could only see the innate madness and bloodthirst, and a little bit of fear. The lion beast thought for a moment. The single sword scabbard in its hand was like an extension of its arm, and it slashed at the blood moon werewolf's wolf claw. The blood moon werewolf suddenly reached out its left claw, and this time, it finally showed its bloodlust. It stared at the corrosive holy light and grabbed the single sword scabbard's blade. Then, its right claw reached out like lightning and grabbed toward the lion beast's face. The lion beast's eyes focused, and its lips were tightly closed. Then, its right wrist that was holding the sword suddenly rotated, and the single sword scabbard's blade was twisted at an angle. Then, it exerted force and slashed the blood moon werewolf's left claw in half. When the blood moon werewolf's claw was one claw away from the lion beast's right arm was cut off from the elbow. Both sides attacked and defended very quickly. In the blink of an eye, the blood moon werewolf's claws were cut off by the lion beast. The lion beast's expression was calm, and it continued to slash at the blood moon werewolf's waist. A white light flashed, and the blood moon werewolf's body was cut open from the waist down. The lion beast didn't stop at all. The blood moon werewolf's basic stats were comparable to that of a 7-star magic elf, but it was killed by the lion beast's sword. But the lion beast suddenly felt a chill on the left side of its face, and it subconsciously raised its hand to grab it. However, it only managed to grab some blood. It spread its blood-stained left hand in front of its face and frowned. "When did I get shot?" "That's one of the hero candidates, the lion beast?" Eldest Prince Charles's expression gradually became serious. The lion beast had demonstrated the resonance between the hero and the holy sword, which finally convinced him that there was such a thing. Moreover, the aura that this magic elf displayed was indeed very similar to that of a hero. The only problem was its attribute. The lion beast was a combat type, and not a light type. This made the possibility of it becoming a true hero infinitely lower. Moreover, the eldest prince couldn't figure out how a magic elf could gradually make up for its bloodline through the holy sword and become a true hero. In the end, why was it possible to refine a magic elf with the potential to become a hero? If the golden-haired youth wasn't the only son of the Valkyrie, he would have done everything in his power to find out the reason. But he was the son of the Valkyrie. If that was the case, the methods that he could use would be a lot fewer. On the other side, the eldest princess' way of thinking about this matter was actually quite similar to the eldest prince's. It was just that her style of doing things was different, so the methods she used were also different. But no matter if it was soft or forceful methods, because of the Valkyrie's existence, they couldn't be used. In her position, it was even more impossible for her to do anything. In comparison, eldest Prince Charles might be able to use some small, harmless methods. Elisha stared at the lion beast on the field, her thoughts constantly turning. At this moment, the two heirs of the royal family seemed to have forgotten that there was a legitimate hero candidate in the Shang Malian Academy. However, Yarer, who was beside Elisha, was looking at the pool of blood on the lion beast's face with a nervous expression. Her many years of battle experience allowed her to sense the danger at a glance. She couldn't help but feel worried for her baby. The pool of blood on the lion beast's face was actually from the blood moon werewolf's palm after its right claw was cut off. At that time, the lion beast didn't expect the blood moon werewolf to have such a move. Even though Dake warned it, it still fell for it. Tom Nixon, who was on the blue team's platform, couldn't help but laugh coldly. It still fell for it. Once the blood moon werewolf's parasitic demon seed was planted, it could drill into the target's body and cause it to lose control. If the blood moon werewolf was still alive, it could even control it to a certain extent. Unfortunately, the blood moon werewolf was still unable to withstand the lion beast's sword. But being able to successfully plant the parasitic demon seed was a victory. Tom Nixon's only worry was that the lion beast would once again activate the divine power of the sword and force the parasitic demon seed out. But from the looks of it, there didn't seem to be such a problem. After completing the summoning, he felt much more at ease. In the sky, the dark red sky quickly dissipated. After the blood moon werewolf's death, the moon of sky's color faded, and the arena regained its light. But the embodiment of justice, the lion beast, had a problem. Its left eye was turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if blood was seeping out from the bottom of its eye, dyeing the entire eye red. Around the corner of its eye, there were obvious veins popping out. Its face suddenly became ferocious. Clang! The scabbard suddenly let out a soft sound. But without the cooperation of the hero's mind, it couldn't activate the divine power in its weapon state. Lion beast? Dake noticed the lion beast's strange state and subconsciously called out softly. But the ferocious look on the lion beast's face became heavier and heavier. It suddenly let out a roar and pressed down hard on its left eye. It lost control of its body and knelt down on one knee. It could only use the scabbard to support itself on the ground, barely supporting itself. From the time the parasitic demon seed was planted to the moment it took effect, less than 10 seconds had passed. But the madness on its face was more serious than what Tom Nixon had expected. Roar! There was another roar. From the palm that covered its left eye, roots suddenly emerged and deeply penetrated the skin around its left eye. Then, they crazily spread and crawled around its face. In the blink of an eye, its face was covered with dense roots. A bloody aura rose and wrapped around it. It's working! Tom Nixon, who suddenly saw this scene, couldn't help but exclaim. Dake glanced at him and quickly said, "Heidi Road Beast, help." Heidi Road Beast quickly moved forward. Before the battle between the lion beast and the blood moon werewolf, it couldn't intervene at all. However, the moment the blood moon werewolf was killed, its mind started to wander again. Meow. Heidi Road Beast walked to the Lion Beast's side and stretched out its cat paw to poke the Lion Beast's head. But the Lion Beast was obviously fighting against the parasitic demon seed's demonization and had no time to pay attention to it. Meow. Heidi Road Beast poked the Lion Beast's head again. Seeing that the Lion Beast still didn't respond, it raised its head, opened its arms to Dake, and shrugged. Dake's forehead wrinkled. He put the 2 magic cards of this round into his hand and forced himself to mentally prepare himself to temporarily give up on the Lion Beast. If it wasn't for the rule of the magic duel that he couldn't put his magic fairy back into the card during the duel, he would most likely choose to quickly put it back. Because the Lion Beast's state was clearly not right. He guessed that it was one of the Blood Moon Werewolf's killing moves, but he didn't know the details. From the Lion Beast's current state, he could tell that it was a sure kill skill that could make the opponent go crazy, similar to Blood Rage, Berserk, and so on. And this guess triggered the lingering worry in his heart. After all, this Lion Beast was made from a special pride fruit. That pride fruit that relied on the lion grass to cultivate might very well contain the crazy genes of the lion grass. This might make the Lion Beast less resistant to this kind of ability that could make people go crazy. Otherwise, with a heart of justice, the Lion Beast should have a stronger resistance to this kind of ability than the average person. This kind of situation was very troublesome for Dake. He didn't have any means to dispel this kind of abnormal status. Even if he summoned the Diru Beast or turned the scabbard into a spirit, the Holy Sword's holy characteristic would only have a better effect on dispelling the abnormal status. After all, the Holy Light wasn't a complete killing move. The other way to deal with it was to sacrifice the Lion Beast to summon a 5-star or higher magic fairy. Unfortunately, it couldn't be done, because the Lion Beast was already the highest magic fairy card in his hand. Let's end this quickly. Dake looked at the cards in his hand, and his eyes flashed. Diru Beast. Dream Demon. In the 9th round, he finally drew another hero, Diru Beast. The appearance of the Dream Demon also gave him more leeway in the next round. Even if the Diru Beast was targeted and restricted, he could also place his hopes on the Bliss 3 Moon in the next round. But there were only a few seconds left before the 9th round ended. Dake spent too much attention on the Lion Beast, so he didn't make the next move in time. On the other hand, Tom Nixon had already summoned a new magic elf on the Blood platform. It was another magic fairy that was very similar to the Rotten Slime that appeared before, Scavenger Slime. Card name, Scavenger Slime. Type, Fairy card. Level, ****. Race, Undying. Attribute, Ghost/Poison. Magic. 1200, Attack. 1600. Defense. 800. Killing move, Ghoul, Feign Death. The Scavenger Slime, that only had one difference in name, had the same level, race, attribute, and magic as the Rotten Slime. However, the attack and defense values were swapped. In addition to the same killing move, Feign Death, the original Rotten Corpse Curse had also become Ghoul. This Rotten Slime, that had the killing move, Ghoul, could prey on the opponent's corpse to recover and strengthen itself. In a magic duel, it would absorb the magic remaining after the death of the magic fairy. Although this effect was not eye-catching, it could cut off all kinds of magic effects. Even Feign Death and Zombification could not be used. It could be said that it was the absolute nemesis of that kind of magic card. But other than that, it was just like that. This Rotten Slime's Ghoul effect could absorb and transform the magic of the dead magic fairy X10. At the same time, its attack would increase by 10 stars, and there was an upper limit. At most, it could store the effect of 100 stars at the same time. That meant that it could increase its attack power by 1000 points and magic by 1000 points, and it had to absorb a lot of corpses. It could be said that the effect was very poor. Tom Nixon did not treat it as a core magic fairy, and the purpose of summoning it was only for the sacrifice. But as a 3-star magic fairy, the attributes of the Rotten Slime were actually very strong. After absorbing the magic remaining after the death of the Blood Moon Werewolf, its attributes had also improved slightly. After that, Tom Nixon activated the next secret instrument card, Predator's Gift. Although this secret instrument card did not have a very powerful effect, its triggering condition was very ordinary, and it was very compatible with Tom Nixon's card set. In a sense, it was even a semi-core magic fairy card. Because its triggering condition was to successfully hunt during a battle. The so-called hunting had a variety of forms, including blood-sucking, scavenging, magic sucking. Any action of hunting and eating the prey was considered to have triggered the ritual and could produce an effect. The effect of Predator's gift was to extract half of the prey and then transform it into a gift. That was the magic fairy called gift. The star level was 1, the magic power was N, the attack was 0, the defense was 0, and the ultimate skill was no. The number of gift was based on the star level of the prey. In fact, Tom Nixon had this Predator's gift in his hands for a long time, but his magic fairy with the blood-sucking ability could not even kill a single prey, causing him to be unable to activate this secret instrument card. Even this rotten slime used the method of stealing chickens, using the action of capturing and eating from corpses to barely meet the conditions of the ritual. This kind of barely met condition also greatly reduced the effect of the secret instrument card. The ritual that could originally transform 6 gifts could only transform 3 in the end. 3 1-star gifts, 1 3-star rotten slime, and the materials for summoning a 6-star were all ready. And Tom Nixon had more than 1 6-star magic fairy card in his hands. He had chosen the Blood Moon Werewolf in the previous sacrificial summoning, but it did not mean that he only had 1 6-star magic fairy card at that time. Therefore, to him, the duel was far from over. Under such circumstances, the 9th round passed in the blink of an eye. Tick. The 10th round began. Both sides drew their cards at the same time. Tom Nixon looked at the new 6-star magic fairy card in his hands and instantly changed his mind. And on the red team's platform, Dake also had 2 more cards in his hands. Fusion, Bliss 3, month. Because there was too much information to deal with in an instant. He was stunned for 2 seconds in a short period of time. Then, he immediately issued a new order to the magic fairy below. Hidiru Beast. Meow. Before Dake issued the order, the Hidiru Beast had already pulled out the single scabbard from the hands of the crazy lion beast. It looked up in confusion with a naive face. Dake's eyebrows twitched, and he issued another order. Big Milk can drink milk. Sun Ibu, attack with telekinesis. Then, he quickly pulled out the Hidiru Beast and cast the sacrificial summoning spell. The puzzle of victory was in his hands, and now he just needed to do whatever he wanted. After hearing Dake's order, the Big Milk can immediately deactivated round shape and began to rub milk with its bare hands. It understood Dake's short order very clearly. Letting it use drink milk was equivalent to cancelling the order to protect the magic fairy ball. This meant that its mission was complete, and the next step was to become a sacrifice. And before that, it could still contribute to the team. For example, the Hidiru Beast had used up a lot of its magic in the previous battle, and this bottle of milk that could restore half of its magic was crucial. Of course, it could also leave the milk for the next magic fairy to use. The Big Milk can's expression was gentle. And after receiving the order, Sun Ibu immediately began to move. The disappearance of the dark red sky canopy had strengthened its telekinesis, and its attack range had also greatly increased. Dake's purpose of letting it use its telekinesis was to let it interfere with Tom Nixon's summoning as much as possible. Both sides also needed to cast the sacrificial summoning spell. Dake was already a beat slower, and the casting speed of the sacrificial summoning spell wasn't as fast. If Sun Ibu could distract Tom Nixon's summoning, it wouldn't lose the initiative. Dake's idea was unquestionably correct. Unfortunately, he was still a beat slower. Tom Nixon was too decisive in this aspect. The scavenger slime used its body to wrap around the 3 gifts, making it impossible for Sun Ibu's telekinesis to attack. Thus, Sun Ibu could only attack the blue magic fairy ball. But Tom Nixon didn't care at all. Magic, Blue 4521, 3444. Only when the sacrificial summoning spell was completed did he suddenly point, controlling the blue magic fairy ball to avoid Sun Ibu's further pull. 3 in 1/6000. Chapter 402. At the same time, the scavenger slime and the 3 gifts on the field all turned into light and merged with the light from the magic card in Tom Nixon's hand, outlining an extremely complicated sacrificial summoning array. As one of the best among the third years, Tom Nixon's set of cards had a very complete system. If it wasn't for the fact that Dake Diming's magic fairy was too powerful, preventing him from triggering the gift of the predator, he could have quickly spread out 2 second-tier 6-star magic fairies on the field. However, a magic duel depended on how the duelist would react in an unknown situation. He did react and suppressed Dake Diming in terms of high-end combat power, if it wasn't for that sword. From Tom Nixon's point of view, although each of Dake Diming's magic fairies were extremely special, the most difficult one to deal with was the sword that was both an equipment card and a magic fairy card. If it wasn't for Dake Diming's amazing opening and starting with the scabbard, he might have already gone up the stage to receive the prize. At least, that was what he thought. Regardless, the duel had indeed reached the 10th round. Fortunately, he had successfully summoned the strongest 6-star magic fairy in his hand. A 6-star magic fairy that was even stronger than the Blood Moon Demon Wolf. Website: https://m Vipkanchu. VIP, come out. Mixed Blood Demonis. Card name, Mixed Blood Demonis. Type: Fairy card. Level: Race: Demi-human. Attribute: Fairy. Magic power: 3000. Attack: 2000. Defense: 2000. Ultimate skills: Eagle Magic, Cat Magic, Dragon Magic. The reason why that 6-star Magic Elven card, which didn't fit in with his deck, had been forced into the deck by him because it was really too powerful. Although the numbers on the surface were not exaggerated, and even compared to the powerful 6-star Magic Fairy, its attack and defense were lacking. However, the Mixed Blood Demonis' 3 ultimate skills made up for this. It was obviously not the first time Tom Nixon's Mixed Blood Demonis appeared, and the audience had a considerable degree of recognition of it. Following the appearance of this Mixed Blood Demonis, a wave of cheers sounded out, showing how popular this Mixed Blood Demonis was. The Mixed Blood Witch, who appeared on the blood platform, had a proud posture. She wore a black robe that clung to her body, and her face under the pointed hat was covered in thick paint. Her face couldn't be seen clearly. Eagle Magic. Hearing Tom Nixon shout, the Mixed Blood Witch suddenly opened her arms, and a large number of black feathers gushed out from her sleeves and spun around her body. The arms of the Mixed Blood Witch turned into wings amidst the fluttering feathers. Her face grew an eagle's beak, and when she flapped her wings and soared, she had already turned into a black eagle. This was the Hybrid Witch's Eagle Magic. After completing her transformation, the Mixed Blood Witch's magic attack and defense stats changed drastically. His mana increased from 3000 to 2000, his attack increased from 2000 to 3500, and his defense increased from 2000 to 1500. A total of 3500 attack power, a value that only a 7-star magic elf could achieve. Kill him. Eagle Demonis. The Mixed Blood Witch swooped down. The telekinesis that Son Ivan tried to block was broken in an instant. The Mixed Blood Witch flew at a low altitude and charged toward the red magic ball without any change in direction. The milk tank that was originally in charge of protecting the magic ball suddenly turned into light at this moment. It turned out that the Dake Diming's sacrificial summoning spell had been successfully completed. However, the timing clearly wasn't good enough. Fortunately, a black shadow flashed by, and the Heidi Road beast with the single scabbard suddenly appeared in the Mixed Blood Witch's path. The Mixed Blood Witch's sharp beak flashed as she charged forward without any fear. The Heidi Road beast slashed out from the front and collided with the Mixed Blood Witch's sharp beak. The wind blew up the Heidi Road beast's feet. It wasn't able to withstand the Mixed Blood Witch's attack, and the damage still hit its body, causing its mana to drop even more. However, as it was flying backward, a gentle force appeared behind it and caught it. The Heidi Road beast had a look of unwillingness on its face. It grabbed the milk that was brought over by the telekinesis and drank it all. As the milk entered its throat, a warm current flowed out and spread to its limbs. The Heidi Road beast recovered more than half of its mana. On the other side, the mixed blood witch missed after knocking the Heidi Road beast away. The red magic ball suddenly flew up under the control of son Ivan's telekinesis, and Dake successfully caught the magic ball. At the same time, the Heidi Road beast jumped out of the sacrificial summoning circle and reached out its hand towards the Heidi Road beast. The Heidi Road beast's expression froze, and it couldn't help but tighten its grip on the single scabbard. However, the single scabbard suddenly buzzed and started to struggle in its hand. The Heidi Road beast's face turned pale, and it threw the single scabbard away. Clang! The single scabbard vibrated happily. The Heidi Road beast didn't move at all, and the single scabbard automatically fell into its hand. The Heidi Road beast caught the parasitic demon seed and looked at the lion beast. It coldly snorted and activated the single scabbard's divine power. The white light shined on the lion beast's body, and its expression relaxed a bit, but the madness in its eyes was still there. The Heidi Road beast sighed and looked at the mixed blood witch. However, the mixed blood witch landed on the ground and turned into a mixed blood cat. Then, it abruptly opened its cat mouth and spat out a flaming magic array. From this magic circle, flames shot out. The Heidi Road beast held the sword in its hand and slashed down, splitting the flames in half. However, immediately after, flames shot out one after another. The Heidi Road beast raised its eyebrows and used its strength. The cat quickly ran and dodged the magic flames that were chasing after it. The mixed blood witch had turned into a black cat, and her 3 stats had returned to magic. It seemed that other than her stats, she had gained the ability to spit out magic flames. The power of the magic flames could only be considered average, but it didn't seem to have a cooldown. The Heidi Road beast quickly ran and thought quickly. It endured the magic flames and closed in on the mixed blood cat. Then, the mixed blood cat transformed again as it closed in. The mixed blood dragon transformed from a small black cat into a fat black dragon whose head was taller than the contestant's stage. The mixed blood dragon fiercely slammed down at the Heidi Road beast. Boom! The Heidi Road beast dodged the dragon's claw, and the mixed blood holy sword easily pierced through the mixed blood dragon's defense that was over 3,000 points. It triggered the mixed blood holy sword's mixed blood dragon ability. The mixed blood dragon used 3,000 points of magic, 3,500 points of attack, and 3,000 points of defense to obtain a body that was as tough as a mountain. However, this came at the cost of reducing its movement speed. Its movement speed became relatively slow, and it was extremely clumsy in front of the Heidi Road beast. Coupled with the mixed blood holy sword's mixed blood dragon ability, the mixed blood dragon instantly pierced through the thick dragon scales and into the relatively weak body. The mixed blood holy sword's body suddenly exploded and gave the mixed blood dragon an unexpected fatal blow. With the mixed blood holy sword and the mixed blood holy sword's mixed blood holy sword, the mixed blood dragon's attack that was over 3,600 points actually insta-killed the mixed blood dragon. Boom! When the black dragon fell, Tom Nixon was still calmly thinking about his strategy for the next round. No one would have thought that the black dragon with over 3,000 points of defense would be so weak in front of the mixed blood holy sword. The commentator and audience gasped in shock. In the ring-shaped audience, White Gouda recalled a familiar scene. When he was in the underground city, he used the mixed blood holy sword to summon the mixed blood holy sword, and it seemed to have triggered a similar ability. It ignored the opponent's defense and pierced through it. But this was the mixed blood holy sword, the weapon that was best at creating miracles. Impossible! As the dragon witch fell to the ground, Tom Nixon's voice was trembling. His eyes hurriedly scanned the cards in his hand, trying to find a magic card that could save the situation. But if there was such a card, he would have used it long ago. He couldn't understand the white cat standing beside the black dragon's body, and the Heidi Road beast that swung the mixed blood holy sword. Although he was confused, he still kept his sword as usual. In the red half area, Sun Ibu, who had become more and more dispirited after using too much telekinesis, took advantage of Tom Nixon's momentary daze to use his telekinesis, like flowing water, to wrap around the blue magic conducting ball and drag it downwards. Bang! The sound of the blue magic ball hitting the blood platform woke Tom up. He flicked his finger, and a huge amount of magic instantly burst out and pulled the magic ball. Magic! Sun Ibu called out softly and had to retract his telekinesis and wait for another opportunity. The Heidi Road beast, who didn't have the ability to attack, could only stand in front of the red magic ball and play the role of a goalkeeper. The 10th round was coming to an end. Dake Diming's summoning spell finally finished its cooldown. He reached out and touched fusion, but he didn't move it lightly. Instead, he moved his finger to the single scabbard magic card. The Heidi Road beast felt the sword tremble slightly and didn't hesitate to swing it out. This holy sword carried a huge amount of power and instantly penetrated the blood platform and shot toward the blue magic ball that was forcefully pulled by Tom Nixon. Curse of Thorns. Tom Nixon activated a magic card in his hand in a moment of desperation. This Curse of Thorns that he drew in the 10th round was originally used to protect the Mixed Blood Witch and reverse the situation. But the Mixed Blood Witch was gone too quickly. He didn't even have the mental preparation to use Curse of Thorns. When it was activated, a patch of green thorns appeared below the blue magic conducting ball, and a mysterious power was released from the thorns barrier. The moment the single scabbard pierced through the thorns barrier, it actually forcefully turned around under the effect of that power and shot back toward the bottom. The Heidi Road beast frowned slightly and instantly took a step back to avoid the single scabbard's path. When the single scabbard shot back in front of him, he slightly raised his hand and grabbed the rapidly falling sword hilt. Then, he pressed down and changed the trajectory of the sword. As if he had a telepathic connection, he turned around and used the single scabbard to throw it out again. Along with the movement of his feet, the Heidi Road beast's sword movement was exceptionally beautiful. The holy sword flew out and carried an even stronger power. In an instant, it broke through the Curse of Thorns that was left in the air. This time, it hit the blue magic ball without any suspense. Bang! Tom Nixon managed to deflect the blue magic ball at the critical moment, but the holy sword still shattered the life enchantment that came into contact with it. Magic, blue 3444, 1314. The life enchantment with only 1,314 points of magic value became extremely dim. Tom Nixon's face was pale. He suddenly injected magic power to make the blue magic ball quickly move away. But when he did this, he actually vaguely felt despair. The Heidi Road beast's god sword. The Mixed Blood Witch's sudden death. It made him defenseless. Since even the final Curse of Thorns couldn't surprise the opponent, then this duel completely lost the possibility of a reversal. Although the countdown of the 10th round had already ended, if he couldn't even spare 3 seconds of summoning time, even if he pulled out the reversal card from the deck, what was the use? Tom Nixon glanced at the sword that soared into the sky. Then, he saw that its form had changed. The single eye on the sword suddenly opened and transformed into the form of a magic fairy. While the Curse of Corpse Decay suppressed the single scabbard, it also sucked its magic power. At this moment, although the single scabbard dispelled the Curse of Corpse Decay, the remaining magic power was very limited. It was difficult to directly attack the magic fairy. But if it was just to chase after the magic ball, it was more than enough. And the remaining magic power of the blue magic ball was not enough to withstand even one sword. Tom Nixon couldn't stop chanting at all. On the red side's platform, Dake Diming looked at his hand and suppressed the urge to draw legs on a snake. He didn't use fusion. Although the Heidi Road beast could fuse with the Diri Road beast to evolve into the Basti beast, but at the same time, it would lose the resonance with the holy sword. Therefore, using fusion to evolve was actually a choice with both advantages and disadvantages. It needed to be cautious. As for the other cards in his hand, Dake took out 2 magic cards from his hand. One was the Flash spell. The other was the Wishful Die. The former could help the single scabbard to complete the final kill at the critical moment. The latter could be used to find fun. Dake had drawn the wishful die many times in the duels. It wasn't that he didn't want to find some fun, but when facing the strong third years, he didn't have much spare time. It was just that he didn't expect that in this final match, he would actually find some spare time. Tom Nixon didn't have any magic fairy on the field. As for his hand, although Dake couldn't see his hand, since he even used a magic card like the Thorn Curse, it was most likely that he had used all his cards. In fact, if the Deary Road Beast didn't deal with it properly, the Thorn Curse would be really troublesome. Dake's eyes flashed. In the end, he gave up the idea of finding fun in the competition. Single scabbard, end the match. Clang. Feeling the trust, the single scabbard fiercely shook the scabbard. It actually accelerated while flying, and in the blink of an eye, it caught up to the blue magic conducting ball under Tom Nixon's control. Tom Nixon's face was ashen. Dake Dimming suddenly took out the wishful die. The moment the blue magic conducting ball's life barrier completely shattered. When the magic power reached 0, the referee's whistle sounded to announce the winner. Dake successfully summoned the wishful die. Wishful die, as I wish, quickly show your spirit. A white die engraved with 18 different colored symbols appeared in front of Ivan of the Sun's son. Ivan stared blankly for a moment. Then, he couldn't help but raise his paw and push the die. After all, it was a magic fairy that was equivalent to a magus. The son Ivan had successfully triggered the wishful die with a single push. Dake was immediately overjoyed. At the last moment, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration and came up with an idea. He couldn't help but try it out at the right time. Son Ivan's Sure Kill skill, Magic Mirror, could nullify most transformation-type Sure Kill skills, and could even bounce them back. If he used it to trigger the wishful die, he wouldn't have to worry about the backlash from transformation-type Sure Kill skills. Thinking about it carefully, the wishful die was simply son Ivan's exclusive tool. Ding! When the dust settled and the audience erupted in cheers, the wishful die started to spin at high speed. The 18 attribute symbols lit up one after another. White and black light intertwined, and the 18 different colors of light spun and shone, creating a dreamlike beauty. The winner has been decided. Even though the duel was full of ups and downs, but Zach Wilson was about to announce the winner when his expression suddenly froze. He noticed the neon lights on the field. The audience's cheers slowly subsided. Countless people's gazes were focused on the wishful die that was still spinning in the field, and they all revealed looks of curiosity. Even Tom Nixon, who had an extremely ugly expression, couldn't help but look over. The wishful die suddenly stopped. Of the 18 attribute symbols, only one side was still lit up. It was still an ordinary attribute. Boom! Immediately after, the wishful die exploded into a cloud of smoke. Then a bunch of fireworks shot up into the sky from the smoke, exploding in the air and releasing rainbow-colored fireworks. Then a second bunch, a third bunch. All kinds of ribbons and fireworks shot up into the sky, illuminating the slightly darkened sky. The dazzling and colorful fireworks continued to bloom, and the atmosphere of celebration and joy was instantly filled. Dake was stunned for a moment before he suddenly realized what skill this was. He couldn't help but reveal a calm and elegant smile. Under the illumination of the fireworks, he slightly bowed to the audience, then suddenly opened his arms and celebrated, "Happy Easter!" F***CK. The untimely voice was drowned out by the roar of the audience. Chapter 403. Celebration. A unique skill of the Atmosphere team, a celebration of happiness. It's an ornamental skill with no effect. The appearance of celebration was really unexpected. Whether it was for Dake himself or for the others, it was the same. But since it had already come to this, Dake could only put on an expression of "everything is under control" and show his identity as a member of the planning team. Under his lead, the atmosphere in the duel hall didn't change because of this unexpected incident. Even the audience seemed to be even more excited. Dake turned his head slightly and looked at the opposite side. On the blue side's platform, Tom Nixon's expression was ugly, but his expression wasn't good to begin with. Dake still didn't know why he wanted to provoke him before the duel even started, but that wasn't important. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make him smile in this duel. Remember the URL. Vipkanchu. VIP. But the magic guide fairies in the arena seemed to be laughing very happily. Whether it was Son Ivan who had triggered the wishful die, the Diru Beast and Black Diru Beast who were slowly walking back to the red side summoning area, or the Lion Beast who was gradually breaking free from its madness, they all looked up at the fireworks in the sky and couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile. They couldn't feel the festive atmosphere, but they could clearly feel the joy of victory. Did they win the championship? In the first row of the audience, Valkyrie grabbed Princess Elisha's arm and couldn't help but ask. Of course, she knew that they had won the championship, but she wanted to hear it from someone else. They won the championship, they won the championship. Princess Elisha hurriedly replied. Her arm was already hurting, but her gaze was still fixed on the Diru Beast on the duel stage and couldn't move away. If the Lion Beast's appearance made her feel surprised, then the Diru Beast's appearance made her feel horrified. The Diru Beast, who was holding the single scabbard, was both a hero and a light elemental. Especially when she saw the Diru Beast instantly kill the Dragon Witch, she couldn't help but doubt. Could the successor of the Shang Malian Academy's hero really be more orthodox than the Diru Beast? On the other side, the first prince clearly felt the same way. His expression was not very good. At this time, he glanced at the blooming fireworks in the sky and suddenly stood up. He did not greet his confidant beside him and just turned to walk out of the stadium. Since Dake Dimeng had already won the championship, there should be no more matches for him. Since there was no match for him, there was no need to watch it. Charles only wanted to return to the mansion as soon as possible to discuss with the Archbishop at length. Meanwhile, in the Freedom Capital, in a private room of the dueling hall, the principal of Shang Malian Academy, ARTI, kept smiling. From her point of view, the more people who had the potential to become bravehearts, the better. The future was always the future of young people. On the other hand, City Lord Montefiore slightly sighed. However, when she saw the golden-haired youth on the contestant stage giving his blessings to the audience, she became more and more indecisive. Aurora, who was beside her, raised her head slightly. Her eyes, which were as bright as the sun, reflected the bright fireworks. Thinking, and doing. Shang Malian Open Air Dueling Hall. As the fireworks faded, someone leaned against the wall and couldn't help but sigh. In the end, she still couldn't take the opportunity to win. What a pity. Fortunately, she had bet on the two of them. If the bet still failed, then she could only do it herself. Although it was a bit difficult, it could still be done. The cheers of the first years were the most lasting. Before the dueling festival began, no one would have thought that the final winner of this group would be a first year. But now that the dust had settled, whether it was because the real powerhouses of the third years had not appeared or because it was too casual, the lower years had already decided the winner of the Easter Dueling Festival. Then, please let me read it one last time. Shang Malian Academy's first Easter Dueling Festival, the final winner of the first to third years is, First Year Noble House, Dake Dimeng. Following Zach Wilson's shout, the gradually quiet venue was once again filled with a sea of applause. Dake Dimeng took the magic card in his hand amidst the applause. He showed it to the audience one by one, and the magic elves below the stage were stored into the card one by one. Then, he only picked out the magic card of the Lion Beast and frowned slightly. The effect of the Blood Moon Werewolf's parasitic magic seed on the Lion Beast had not been eliminated. Even if the Lion Beast immediately went into a dormant state after entering the card, the roots on its face were still there, and the muscles on its face would twitch from time to time. Maybe I should go look for Sister Kalien. Dake pondered for a moment, and only this magic card was stored in his sleeve. Then, he walked down the stage. Next, please walk this way. The staff member guarding the side of the stairs pointed to the stage. Dake took a deep breath, turned around, and walked forward. His footsteps unconsciously quickened. On the other side, Tom Nixon had also left the stage. It seemed like he did not want to meet Dake face to face, so he chose another path. He walked alone into the contestants' passage and went to a designated spot. He was very anxious. Not long after, Dake went up the stage again. The host, Judy, congratulated him as soon as he came up. However, it seemed like there was something wrong with his expression, so Judy immediately put away the pleasantries and went straight to the point. She smiled and said, "At this point in the duel festival, there shouldn't be anyone who doesn't know your name, right?" Student Dake Dimming. Dake nodded slightly, and his expression relaxed. "Senior Judy, didn't you specifically say my name again?" Judy put the microphone on her mouth and smiled. "Then, can I call you Student Dake?" "Of course." Dake nodded. "What's your name, Senior?" Judy pursed her lips. "Student Dake, it seems like you're not as happy about winning the finals as I thought you were?" Dake immediately shook his head. "No, I'm very excited." Judy pretended to be surprised. "Is that so? Can I represent the audience, representing your future fans to ask you a few questions?" Dake obviously wanted to say no, but after all, this was an interview for the final winner, so he had to give the school some face. He nodded. "Is it 3 questions?" Judy mischievously said, "It can't be like before." Dake, "Then hurry up. I think the audience will be looking forward to the finals for the seniors." Judy smiled. "Who knows which one they're looking forward to more?" Then, Student Dake, "What do you think of the duel itself?" Dake thought carefully and said, "In this duel, my performance wasn't very good. My lack of experience in duels, as well as the problem with the deck structure, made it difficult for me to fully grasp the situation." Judy's eyes flashed, a little surprised that Dake would actually give such a formal answer. She originally thought that Dake would just brush it off like last time. This made her immediately say, "Modesty is a virtue, but Student Dake doesn't have to be so modest. Your deck structure is very unique, and even in the entire school, it would be hard to find someone who could copy it. As for your lack of experience in duels, your performance in this duel was far beyond what a first-year student should be capable of." Dake shook his head. "You can't say that. I was just a little lucky when I drew the cards." After all, almost half of his cards were useless. As the core, there were only 3 Great Sins 3 cards. There were only 10 first-tier Magic Elven cards that could be summoned, and including the Scabbard, there were only 11 cards. Among them, there were 4 1-star Magic Elven cards that didn't have any life-saving abilities. Using this kind of deck was completely to fill up the number of 40 cards. It was already a miracle that in 10 consecutive rounds of card drawing, he didn't get stuck once. And in all 3 rounds, he didn't get stuck. Under normal circumstances, even if he started with 5 useless cards, it was very likely that he would be killed in the first round. As expected, it was very necessary to believe in one's own deck. Thinking of this, Dake couldn't help but smile. Judy said, "Although luck is an indispensable factor in a magic duel, it is definitely not the decisive factor. Is it so hard to admit that you are strong?" Dake was stunned, and couldn't help but carefully size up this senior. Judy's face could only be described as exquisite, and the perfect makeup made her look very charming. Her temperament was between a kind of atmosphere and a kind of delicate, like a ragdoll cat that would suddenly reveal its mischievous side. He raised it a little and said with a smile, "Since Senior says so, then I will admit that I am very strong." As soon as he said this, the audience immediately applauded. People would respect a humble person, but they would worship someone who was confident enough, who was flamboyant enough. If one didn't have a vigorous temperament, how could they be worshipped? The audience had a deeper impression of this first-year blonde youth from the aristocratic academy. Judy looked satisfied and then said, "Then, let's start the second question. What do you think of your opponent in this duel?" As soon as this question was asked, Dake frowned slightly. If Judy's first question was considered a normal question, then the second question was somewhat inappropriate. Letting a champion who had just won the final round evaluate the runner-up who had been eliminated? How could you ask that? But when he turned his gaze, Judy secretly winked, and with her back to the audience, revealed a mischievous smile. In fact, the reason for asking this question, on one hand, was to ignite the atmosphere, and on the other hand, it was a little revenge for Dake's teasing in the previous interview. The wife of the famous duel master, Lu Xun of Switzerland, once said, "A woman's heart is made of needles." But Dake saw the meaning in her eyes, and instead of frowning, he smiled and said, "How do I say this? Actually, when I was in the preliminary round, I thought that my opponent in the finals would be Senior Winnie Scardy, but in fact, the person standing opposite me was Senior Tom Nixon." Tom Nixon, who was walking in the contestants' tunnel, subconsciously stopped in his tracks. The sound on the stage passed through the wall and into his ears. But just as he was about to listen carefully, someone stepped out from the corner in front of him. Ms. Leah Goethe. Tom Nixon couldn't help but speak. But when Leah Goethe walked towards him, she raised her index finger and said softly, "Don't you want to hear his evaluation of you?" "I need a first-year student's evaluation?" Tom Nixon snorted, but his ears were pricked up. Dake Dimeng held the microphone and said, "To be able to defeat Senior Winnie Scardy and successfully enter the finals, you naturally have your own uniqueness. Senior Tom Nixon's card deck is very connected. It gives people the feeling that no matter what kind of hand you draw, it can form a connection. This is something that my card deck is especially lacking. I should use this as a goal to study in the future. However, the flaws in Senior Tom Nixon's deck are also very obvious." "What flaw is it?" Judy asked subconsciously, but then she said, "If it's not convenient, we can jump over." "It's not something that's inconvenient to say," Dake said seriously. "It's very simple. His card deck isn't strong enough." Judy couldn't help but be surprised. "Not strong enough?" Dake said again, "Yes, it's just that it's not strong enough. If we have the chance to meet in the duel arena next time, I sincerely hope that Senior can refine a stronger trump card." Judy said in surprise, "But his Magic Guide sprite is already a 6-star, and it's a 6-star Magic Guide sprite that can reach 7-star attributes. This is already very outstanding among the third years." Dake shook his head and said, "Attributes are only one thing after all. The ultimate skill is the core of the Magic Guide sprite." "Senior, do you have the next question?" Judy quickly said, "Of course." Dake nodded and said, "Please ask." Judy pretended to think and then asked, "What are your expectations for the final winner's reward? I mean, have you ever thought about what you could get from the last Easter egg?" Dake smiled and said, "Of course I have, and I'm looking forward to it." In the contestants' tunnel, Tom Nixon was a little surprised after hearing Dake's evaluation of him. He thought that Dake would mention his hunting gesture before the competition and his deliberate display of the Magic Guide card during the competition, but Dake didn't do that at all. Instead, he simply evaluated his card deck. However, he hesitated and said, "Is my card deck really not strong enough?" But in front of him, Leah Goethe shook her head and said, "No, he didn't tell the truth." Tom Nixon raised his head and asked, "Why do you say that?" Leah Goethe smiled and said, "Because you have a bigger flaw." Tom Nixon frowned for a moment, but then he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. In front of this woman, he had no right to be angry. Leah Goethe's voice sounded leisurely. "So, what do you think of my proposal?" Tom Nixon said, "But I failed." Leah Goethe smiled and said, "It doesn't matter, we can change the condition." Tom Nixon, "What condition?" Leah Goethe, "White Gouda, you should know." The development of everything had already transcended the trajectory. Everyone was going down a completely different path. After answering Judy's 3 questions, Dake Dimeng bowed to the audience and left the stage. Next would be the final match of this year's Easter Duel Festival, the finals of the senior group. Dake was also looking forward to this exciting duel, but what he needed to do now was not find a seat to sit down and watch the battle. When he was on the contestant stage, he saw the professors in the ring. "I remember that Professor Shi Erfu should be sitting there. I wonder if Sister Kal Yen gave herself a break?" Dake walked along the back area of the ring, his eyes sweeping over each figure. Next, he still had to wait for the senior group finals to end before he could receive the prize with the final winner, so he could not leave the duel hall for the time being. The best way to eliminate the abnormal state of the lion beast as soon as possible was to find the professor. Even if Sister Kal Yen was not here, Professor Shi Erfu should have a way. Unknowingly, his relationship with Professor Shi Erfu seemed to have improved. When Knight Baron Noah Sharp and the sixth-year student went up the stairs, Dake finally found Professor Shi Erfu. Then he was very surprised to find that Professor Mitya Bartholomew was also beside Professor Shi Erfu. Is it to prevent Professor Midya from doing anything at Easter, so you specifically tied her to your side? Dake couldn't help but grin. He wanted to laugh. Professor Mitya Bartholomew was obviously an old leftover woman, but in front of Professor Shi Erfu, she was like a naughty child who was caught red-handed. The dignified Silver Moon Witch, the Eye of the Stars Diviner, had no dignity at all. He walked through the tunnel. Before he got close, Professor Shi Erfu turned his head, obviously feeling the blessing of the wind spirit. Dake sometimes thought that in the eyes of Professor Shi Erfu, the blessing of the wind spirit might be similar to a GPS signal. If one day he was really in trouble, Professor Shi Erfu might be able to find him as soon as possible. Professor. Dake quickened his pace and walked to the front of Professor Shi Erfu. There were many professors around, including Professor Ka Zayer and Professor Li Li, but Sister Kalien was not there. Dake greeted the professors he was familiar with, then bent down and said a few words to Professor Shi Erfu. Professor Shi Erfu said with a serious expression, "Your magic guide elf is different from others. You really need to find Sister Kalien to check it. But if it's just to eliminate the abnormal state left by the parasitic demon seed, I can do it for you." Dake thought for a moment and said, "Let's eliminate the abnormal state first. Then I'll visit Sister Kalien." Professor Shi Erfu nodded and said, "Summon the lion beast." More than 10,000 new posts were updated today. It's not too much to ask for votes, right? O equals Omega. Smiley face M. Chapter 404. Dake took out the Lion Beast magic card from his sleeve and injected magic power into it to wake it up. Then, he took out the Ball Sea Lion and Dream Demon and used the sacrificial summoning spell to summon the Lion Beast from the magic card. The Lion Beast that appeared in front of everyone was tall and mighty, but its left eye was still parasitized by the magic seed, making it look ferocious. Professor Shi Erfu glanced at it and took out a magic card from his card pack. He then waved his hand to summon it. Along with a soft sound, raindrops suddenly began to fall from the sky, emitting a fresh and refreshing aura. Bathed in the rain, the lion beast's expression clearly relaxed. It covered its left eye and panted slightly. The raindrops gradually slid down its cheeks and gathered in its left eye as if they were conscious. A flash of pain appeared. The magic seed in the lion beast's left eye withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, it turned into a pile of black powder and was washed away. The blood-red color in the lion beast's eye finally faded, and the crazy aura gradually dissipated. Dake heaved a sigh of relief and reached out his hand to the lion beast. "Remember in 1 second. https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP. The lion beast raised its hand and pressed its paw into Dake's palm. Both of them looked at each other. The lion beast's eyes regained their clarity and seemed to be saying, "It's recovered. Don't worry." Dake was finally relieved. Then, the lion beast's body turned into light and went back into the magic card. Dake touched the card carefully and put it back into the card pack. The professors couldn't help but smile when they saw how much he treasured the magic elf. The competition was imminent. Dake thanked Professor Shi Erfu and quickly left. However, he didn't go far. Instead, he found an empty seat nearby and sat down to watch the final. The audience's enthusiasm seemed to be endless. When the Baron of the Night, Noah Sharp and the sixth-year student went up to the contestants' platform, the audience was still cheering. Both contestants were quite popular. The sixth-year student's name was Joseph Bruno, nicknamed the Blue Sky Knight. He specialized in flying magic elves. Almost all magic elves could fly in the air. In a magic engineering duel, a magic engineering fairy with the ability to fly would always have an additional advantage. In a duel with the Azure Sky Knight, Joseph Bruno, as long as he couldn't keep up with the rhythm, the magic conducting ball would fall into an endless barrage of attacks, and he would be killed in one wave. This was the general style of the Azure Sky Knights. In comparison, Evernight Baron, was the all-round type. The duel between the two was undoubtedly exciting. Dake couldn't help but watch with rapt attention. The 5th and 6th year contestants had basically grasped all the content that was normally taught in the academy, from the venue cards to the mystic instrument cards. They could use each of them with ease. Of course, from God's point of view, he could always find some flaws in the players. Optional hands were not emotionless robots. They had emotions and a sense of self. They would be affected by their physical and mental states. Even some obvious things could be completely overlooked in an intense battle. Some of the spectators liked to nitpick or criticize the duelist's performance on the spot based on the conclusion after the duel. That was truly irrational. Dake carefully observed the duel between the Evernight Baron and the Azure Sky Knight, absorbing the strengths of both sides. He gained a lot. In the end, both contestants summoned their strongest magic engineering fairies. Evernight Baron's Reedridge Black Dragon roared. Azure Sky Knight's Blue Demon Butterfly split into countless clones, covering the sky and earth. The final result was out of everyone's expectations. That popular Reedridge Black Dragon had its bone marrow sucked dry by the Blue Demon Butterfly's clone and died on the spot. Azure Sky Knight, Joseph Bruno, had obtained the final victory. The 6th year is the 6th year after all. Contestant Bruno once again gave us the most exciting duel before graduation. Let us give him the warmest applause. Amidst the thunderous applause, Dake pulled in his collar and stood up from his seat. Next, when the Azure Sky Knight's victory interview ended, it would be time to receive the award. After such a long time, he finally had the chance to enter the secret tunnel. He straightened his back and walked toward the contestant tunnel. Joseph Bruno, a 6th year student of the Mage Institute. He had a head of long green hair, and his body was thin. His face looked feminine, and with his long hair, he had a special aura. Since he was able to defeat Evernight Baron, Joseph Bruno naturally wasn't an ordinary student. When he was still in the 3rd year, he had started to show his talent. When he was in the 4th year, he had been a leader. After resigning in the 5th year, he had been silent for a while. He had changed from a high-spirited duelist to a person who focused on research. It was said that he had applied to stay at the Mage Institute a while ago. His wish was to become a professor at the Shang Malian Institute. The position of a professor was actually very popular. Every year, many students from the Mage Institute wanted to stay at the Mage Institute. However, it was like thousands of soldiers and horses crossing a wooden bridge. No, it was even more difficult than that. At least one person could cross a wooden bridge. However, the applications from the Mage Institute were often rejected. Joseph Bruno quickly dealt with Judy's interview and pushed the process to the final award ceremony of the Duel Festival. At the invitation of the staff, Doc Diamond went on stage again. The two winners of the Easter Duel Festival appeared in front of the audience at the same time. This caused another round of excitement. Judy smiled at Dake and said, "I think the two contestants can't wait any longer. This year's Easter Duel Festival wasn't perfect because it was first held, but we still have an award ceremony. Now, let's invite the two duel professors to present the award to the winners of this competition." The applause was thunderous. The two duel professors went on stage amidst the applause. One of them was very tall, more than 2 meters tall, but his body proportions were very good. He looked like a bronze-colored short-haired beauty. The other one had white hair and a beard, but his back was straight and he looked very energetic. They were Professor Pawa Cheong-si and Professor Hans Fox. Dake met Professor Fox during the Duel Club's exam, so he was familiar with him. In the midst of the elegant music, the two professors each took a flat box covered with a red cloth from the hands of the staff. They then walked towards Doc and Joseph Bruno one after the other. Professor Cheong-si quickly walked in front of Dake. The gigantic human heart was about to press forward with an oppressive aura. Doc quickly calmed himself down. "Good job." Professor Cheong-si bent down and rubbed Dake's head. Then, she lifted the box in her hand and removed the red cloth. Inside the box, there was a medal and a small golden hammer quietly placed. Professor Jones took the medal engraved with the words, "Winner of the Easter Duel Festival," from the box and gently pressed it against Doc's chest, allowing it to stick to his chest smoothly. Then, she picked up the small golden hammer and handed it over. Dake took the hammer and said softly, "Thank you." Professor Cheong-si rubbed his head again, turned around, and walked away. After Professor Fox gave the medal and golden hammer to Joseph Bruno, he walked over to Lu Zhou. Dake had a deep impression of this strict professor, but he didn't expect Professor Fox to turn around and smile at him. Although Dake was a little confused, he immediately responded, "Maybe this is a professor." After the two professors left the stage one after another, Senior Sister Judy said a few introductory words. Then, she very naturally pulled out a colorful brocade cloth from her side. Then, a rectangular table appeared in everyone's sight. On the top of the table, there were two huge Easter eggs standing quietly. It's finally time for the most exciting part. Let's invite the two winners to present the final show. I heard that these two Easter eggs were specially made by our professors. In addition to the specific prizes, there are also all kinds of wonderful prizes, such as cute little pigs. Judy winked at the audience and said wittily, "Even the professors themselves don't know what kind of Easter eggs they'll open. It'll definitely bring a huge surprise to the two winners. Let's invite the two winners to open the prizes." Judy's explanation was very sudden. Dake couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He had never heard of the Easter eggs having this kind of mechanism. If a pig was smashed out, wouldn't it be very inelegant? He inadvertently glanced at the sixth-year student next to him. It seemed like the sixth-year student next to him was also moved. So who was the one behind this? Professor Cazell was grinning from ear to ear in the audience. Dake looked around and noticed Ka Zayer sitting behind Professor Shi Erfu. His face suddenly darkened. What's wrong with Professor Ka Zayer? Did he get infected by Professor Li Li? Dake, Judy whispered. Dake had no choice but to pick up the small golden hammer and walk over. Judy said, "You can choose one of the two Easter eggs." After Dake heard this, he turned around and looked at Joseph Bruno. He said, "Bruno, do you want to choose first?" Joseph Bruno's mouth twitched. He pointed at the Easter egg and said, "I'll choose this one." Dake nodded and walked in front of the other Easter egg. Both of them stood in front of the Easter egg and picked up the small golden hammer at the same time. Judy said, "As we all know, the duel competition has some requirements for the player's card luck. Players with good card luck will always have a smoother path in the duel. Next, let's see who is the favorite of the Goddess of Luck, Dark Diamond and Joseph Bruno, respectively, the first and sixth-year contestants." Goddess of Luck? Dake listened to Judy's words and couldn't help but smile. He wanted to meet the Goddess of Luck, but he didn't know if she would do him the honor. While he was thinking, he suddenly heard the sound of an eggshell cracking. He couldn't help but turn around. It was the sixth-year senior who had already struck the small golden hammer with all his might. Pa! The small golden hammer smashed onto the huge Easter egg, instantly activating a 7-colored light array. One after another, 7 colored light circles spread outwards, causing people who were not too interested in this program to be unable to help but look over. Joseph Bruno frowned slightly and noticed that there were small cracks on the top of the Easter egg. Then the cracks quickly spread and a strong light came out from the cracks. It was dazzling. Pa! With a crisp sound, the shell of the Easter egg shattered and fell to the ground. And the prize located in the Easter egg was finally exposed to everyone's vision. Dake was right next to him, so he naturally saw it the clearest. What appeared in the eggshell was a white door card and a blank magic card. It's only white? Dake thought for a moment. Door cards were divided into 5 levels: white, blue, purple, orange, and gold. The white door card couldn't bring people into the secret passage and could only enter and exit the secret passage once a month. The blue door card could bring at most one person into the secret passage and could only enter and exit twice a month. And so on and so forth. The gold door card was the highest level and could bring 4 people into the secret passage and could only enter and exit 5 times a month. The number of people and the number of times they could enter the secret passage was to prevent too many people from entering and also for the safety of the students. However, the final prize of the Easter Duel Festival was a white card which surprised Dake a little. He always felt that Professor K. Zayer shouldn't be so stingy. Is it because Bruno's luck is too bad? He couldn't help but think. Of course, Joseph Bruno didn't know that the door card had different levels. As a fixed prize, he knew in advance that the Easter egg would smash such a door card. In fact, he came to participate in the Duel Festival to get this door card. When the two cards in front of him were placed side by side, the difference between them could be identified at a glance. Bruno first put away the door card and then reached for the other magic card. But as soon as he touched it, he suddenly felt a trace of magic fluctuation and immediately retracted his fingers. However, the magic in his body had already been absorbed at that moment. That semi-finished magic card with a mechanism made beforehand was automatically smelted and triggered, emitting a strong, blazing white light. Then, a round pink pig leaped out from the card. It really smashed a pig out. Just as the audience was exclaiming, a second, a third, and more pigs jumped out of the card one after another. 9 pigs jumped out in one breath, each with a different color. Joseph Bruno subconsciously wanted to summon the pigs, but in the end, he showed a helpless smile and let the 9 pigs jump on him and lick him crazily. It's a festival, let's make everyone happy. Bruno thought so. But Dake Dimming beside him was sweating slightly. Low fever state. Chapter 405. I wonder what Dake Dimming will get. The audience looked at Joseph Bruno, who was pushed to the ground by the 9 little pigs, and couldn't help but look at the other winner on the stage. If such a gentle golden-haired young man was licked by the little pigs like Joseph Bruno, that scene. But he really wanted to take a look. People always like to see immortals fall into the mortal world. Therefore, the audience held a strong sense of evil and became more interested in the Dake Dimings award ceremony. Student Dake, it's your turn, Judy reminded him. Dake had to pick up the little golden hammer again. In fact, he was also looking forward to the prize inside the Easter egg. Joseph Bruno's current appearance was quite embarrassing, but the magic card he got was not simple. From the intelligence of the 9 little pigs, it could be seen that they were not simple magic creations, but 9 real magic elves. The first website was https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP. This type of magic elven card was similar to Angelia's Fairy Choir from the Sorcerer Academy. It was an army type of magic elven card and was very rare. If it could be combined with a special magic card, the Great Liberation, he could get 9 individual magic elves in an instant. Of course, compared to its practical value, its research value might be higher. A similar magic card was D. Anna's Bear's Den. The ultimate skill of Bear's Den, 3 little bears, had a similar effect to the Great Liberation. It could turn the 3 little bears into independent individuals after the Bear's Den collapsed. If I can get a magic card of this type, maybe I can use it as a foundation and try to study the creation of weak fish. Dake calmed down and exerted his strength. Bang! The small golden hammer smashed hard on the top of the Easter egg. The magic attached to the little golden hammer was triggered and bloomed into a colorful magic circle that kept spreading outwards. Then, the huge Easter egg began to break from the top, and the strong light from the crack made Dake squint. When he opened his eyes again, only 1/3 of the eggshell was left. His gaze turned, and a trace of astonishment immediately appeared on his face. At the bottom of the eggshell, there were 3 cards. Could it be that even the number of prizes depends on luck? Dake couldn't help but glance at Joseph Bruno. It seemed that this senior's luck wasn't too good. With that in mind, Dake reached into the eggshell and took out the key card. Unlike the white card that Joseph Bruno had drawn, the card in Dake's hand was emitting a faint blue glow. It was a blue card of a higher level. This meant that not only could he bring an extra person into the secret passage, but he could also enter and exit it twice a month. Not bad. Dake was overjoyed. As long as it did not affect his studies, he would most likely choose to enter the secret passage on weekends. Since there were 4 weeks in a month, 2 chances were just right. Now, it's time for the other 2 prizes. Dake looked at the 2 cards, and a trace of helplessness flashed across his face, but he still reached out his hand. The faces of the 2 magic cards were blank, and he didn't know what they were. Dake randomly picked one, and with 2 fingers, picked it into his hand. After that, he discovered that a trace of magic was indeed being sucked away. The magic card automatically began to smelt, and then automatically activated, and suddenly shot out a white light. Dake smiled helplessly, and didn't dodge, letting the white light from the magic card shine on his body. Then, he suddenly felt his whole body lighten, and his whole body shot up into the sky. The sudden change startled Dake. Levitation spell, or flight spell? It didn't feel good to be in the air. Dake looked at the constantly rising field of vision, and he felt a little dizzy. Humans yearn for the sky, but when they were really high up in the sky, they would often feel fear. Although Dake wasn't afraid of heights, he still felt fear. He lowered his head slightly and looked down, and noticed that the audience in the auditorium was rapidly shrinking, and exclamations were constantly heard. The sound waves that filled his ears calmed him down. The first thing he did was to reach for the card bag, but he immediately realized that the spell card was in his hand. So, he took the opportunity to inject magic, and soon received magic retroaction. It's the flight spell. The flight spell was also a type of universal spell, but compared to the 5 major spells in the appendix of the first-year textbooks, the flight spell was undoubtedly much more complicated. Dake understood in the process of learning the magic language that this was far from a spell that he could master at his own level. So, after he learned that this was a flight spell, he immediately turned from shock to joy. There was nothing to be afraid of. Even if he really couldn't handle it, the professors in the audience would come to his rescue. Moreover, the key to solving the dilemma was in his hand. Dake immediately took the flight spell in front of him and tried to inject thoughts into the card along with magic to adjust the direction and speed. After a few sudden accelerations and turns, he suddenly found that controlling the flight spell was far less difficult than he imagined. He quickly mastered the essentials of controlling the flight spell, and he couldn't help but feel happy. Woo! Dake's sudden ascent really made Yvette, who was in the audience, so nervous that her heart was about to jump out. If she hadn't clearly seen Dake calm down at a speed visible to the naked eye, she would have fainted on the spot. Really, are you that scared? Claire glanced at her with an air of composure. Meow. The fat cat in her arms cried out with some resistance, and its meat hurt. The first princess, who was sandwiched in the middle, closed her mouth tightly. Other than the initial shock, the atmosphere in the duel hall was quite good. When the audience suddenly noticed that the blonde boy who was sent into the sky could fly freely, the previous exclamations turned into cheers. Dake flew 2 more laps in the air, and then slammed into the ground. Then, he dived in mid-air in an L shape, floated down, and returned to the stage. He was like a magician who had finished his performance, looking at the audience with a smile on his face. The applause was even louder. But this time, the award ceremony wasn't over. Dake put away the flight spell magic card and reached out again for the last card. After the experience of the flight spell, not only was he not worried, but he was looking forward to it. I don't know what this card will be. As Judy said, this was really a test of luck. When Dake's fingers touched the 3rd card, he didn't feel the same as before. His magic wasn't sucked away. This made him frown slightly, and he subconsciously felt disappointed. But he immediately picked up the card in front of his eyes and found that there were a few more words on the card. Transformation spell. It's the transformation spell. Dake's eyes suddenly lit up, and he was overjoyed. No wonder. If the flight spell was said to be between the 2nd and 3rd grade, then the transformation spell was a spell card that only the 5th and 6th grade students had the opportunity to learn. Moreover, the transformation spell wasn't a universal spell, and part of the spell had to be written by the magister himself. Therefore, it couldn't be used as a semi-finished card, and only absorb a little magic to activate automatic smelting. This also meant that Dake wouldn't activate it on the spot. Otherwise, he was really afraid that he would turn into a cat on the spot, and carry 1 or 2 shameful titles such as Dake Cat. In short, this incomplete transformation spell should be a stepping stone to get a private lesson from a certain professor. Dake nodded with satisfaction and put away the transformation spell. Then, he looked up at Judy and showed a meaningful smile. Judy, who was full of disappointment, quickly adjusted her expression and reached out her hand. It seems that the two contestants are very satisfied with their prizes. Here, as the host of this duel festival, I congratulate them once again. Congratulations to the 1st grade Dake Dimming of the Aristocratic Academy and the 6th grade Joseph Bruno of the Magic Academy for winning the first Easter Duel Festival. Duong! The sound of the piano suddenly changed, and the music in the arena instantly became passionate. Dake Dimming and Joseph Bruno left the stage one after another. After the two left the stage, the audience in the various branches also left the stage. It's over again. Yalvet looked depressed and reluctant to leave. However, after the duel festival ended, the connection between the branches and the main hall would be disconnected. No matter how reluctant she was, it wouldn't help. Claire walked over. Let's go, we have things to do next. That's true. Yalvet adjusted her expression and looked serious. What Dake showed in this duel festival wouldn't have a big impact on the kingdom situation for the time being, but that was only because it wasn't time yet. If they didn't pay attention to it and let it continue to ferment, the future would be unpredictable. Just like she said before, some things couldn't be shaken off once they stuck to you. Sigh. Elisha pulled back her two sisters who wanted to run away and couldn't help but sigh. Outside the branch library, the sky in the capital was still drizzling, and the rain continued to fall. When the first prince and first princess started to move, City Lord Mordilfully of the Freedom City finally made a decision. Aurora, prepare for the handover of internal affairs. Handover? Aurora hesitated for once. Isn't there still 5 months? City Lord Suna Mordilfully couldn't help but turn her head to look at the capital and faintly say, if you still insist on your idea, we have to prepare as soon as possible. Aurora was smart, so she naturally understood. She couldn't help but lower her head, her face slightly blushing as she softly said, okay. City Lord Mordilfully suddenly put on a serious face. Don't be happy too early, I'm not going to propose, I'm going to cancel the engagement. Aurora, huh? Dake Dimming didn't realize the far-reaching impact of this duel festival. In fact, even if he did, he probably wouldn't care too much. Because that wasn't in his consideration. His goal was always clear. After leaving the stage, Dake summoned the little devil beast and released it from the curse cage. The little devil beast turned back into a familiar and had the tracking ability of a familiar. With the help of the little devil beast, Dake quickly found Deanna and Luosi. Sure enough, Panduola was also with them. Dake, what card did you get in the end? Why didn't it trigger? Deanna ran over like a little bear and Dake stopped in order to not bump into her. The crowd surged as Luosi and Panduola followed closely behind. Panduola looked at Dake and smiled. That's right, we were looking forward to you being pounced on by the little pig. Dake showed a helpless smile. I was lucky, the last card was Transformation Spell. Deanna couldn't help but blink after hearing this. Then why didn't it change? Panduola lowered her head and smiled. Transformation Spell records the transformation spell, it's not a common spell. Under normal circumstances, it needs to be written by the Magister himself to create a suitable spell card. Deanna subconsciously covered her head. Does it have to be written in the Magicite language? Panduola said softly, yes, you have to start learning it from the 2nd year. The Magicite language is a knowledge that runs through the Magister's life. Don't be lazy when learning it, especially you, Deanna. Deanna couldn't help but stick out her tongue, pretending not to hear. Luosi chuckled. The four of them continued to move forward with the crowd and soon left the open-air arena. The sun was setting in the west, the sunset was frivolous, everyone's face reflected a different kind of red. Today's Easter. It's surprisingly peaceful. Dake looked back at the open-air arena, which was like the Roman Colosseum, with a meaningful look in his eyes. When the crowd was almost exhausted, Joseph Bruno, who walked down the stage at the same time as Dake, came to the agreed place in the contestants' passage. Only Leah Goethe was waiting in the passage with only a faint light left. Although Leah Goethe had bet on 2 people, of course, she did it separately and didn't let them know about each other's existence. Tom Nixon's failure was within her expectations, although the process was a little different. She thought that Tom would be defeated by Winnie Scarty, but she didn't expect that he would encounter a Waterloo in front of Dake Dimming. Fortunately, Joseph Bruno won the final victory as expected. "Hello, Ms. Goethe." Bruno walked in front of Leah Goethe, with a smile on his slightly feminine face. Leah Goethe raised her head, revealing the face that Dake saw in the antique bookstore, and smiled, "Congratulations on winning." Bruno directly took out the door card and said, "Don't worry, I was careful before touching it and didn't activate it." Leah smiled, "Thank you very much." Bruno picked up the door card and shook it. "You promised me that as long as I helped you win this door card, I would be guaranteed to stay in the academy. I hope to see the exact basis." Leah Goethe stared into his eyes and said, "I never lie." But in the next moment, Joseph Bruno suddenly felt dizzy and his vision became dim. When he came back to his senses, the door card in his hand had disappeared. Leah Goethe activated the door card and completed the binding. A key-like figure popped up on the card and bowed, "Identity verification successful, identity verification successful. Hello, my master. Please register your name." Leah Goethe observed the figure and said with great interest, "Is this an intelligence system similar to the tamed demon?" "It is indeed similar to the branch card. I don't know what other functions it has besides opening the door. I heard that there is also a communication function." Joseph Bruno's voice obviously became low, his fingers had reached into the card bag, and his eyes were full of vigilance as he looked at Leah Goethe. Leah Goethe shook the door card at him and said softly, "Don't be nervous. I will do what I say. You will be the only one who succeeds in staying in the academy this year." Joseph Bruno asked, "Basis?" Leah Goethe shook her head and said, "No basis, you will know when the time comes. You should believe that your knowledge is enough to stay, otherwise, I can't help you even if I want to. By the way, don't do anything. You understand?" Joseph Bruno's hand that reached into the card bag did not withdraw, but he did not move either. Leah Goethe was about to continue speaking when she suddenly raised her eyebrows. Then, beep! A nostalgic sound came from the door card in her hand. It was the same sound when the branch card received the notification. She looked at the card and a letter popped out. Chapter 406. Leah Goethe looked at the envelope logo that popped up on the card surface and suddenly had an ominous premonition in her heart. But she hesitated for a moment and finally tapped her finger on it. With the infusion of magic power, the envelope opened and revealed the contents inside. "Ophelia Brad, come to my office. Sarah Shi Erfu." Leah Goethe suddenly fell silent. She silently crossed out this notice, then turned the door card over and tapped it with her fingertips. A drop of bright red blood flowed out from her fingertips and meandered forward on the back of the door card as if it had a consciousness. In just a few seconds, an extremely complicated blood magic circle was automatically outlined. Then, Leah Goethe tapped her fingers and actually began the refining process just like that. Remember the URL. VIP VIP. The threads condensed from blood instantly surrounded the entire door card. This scene made Joseph Bruno's pupils shrink abruptly and a trace of horror emerged in his heart. He could not help but feel lucky that he did not act rashly. But he was not completely inactive. "Are you still not leaving?" Suddenly, Leah Goethe raised her head and said. Joseph Bruno instinctively swallowed and finally chose to believe in reason. He said in a low voice, "I believe you, but you must not forget your promise. Otherwise—" Leah Goethe was no longer looking at him. "Otherwise, you will tell everything you know." "No problem, you can even go to your professor now." "Okay, bye-bye." With that said, she raised the door card and waved at him. At the back of the door card, there was already a bright red spider attached to it. The spider's 8 legs climbed to the edge of the front and emitted a faint red light. Joseph Bruno glanced at the door card again and quietly took half a step back. Then, he suddenly turned around and left quickly. As the saying goes, the connoisseur looks at the artistry while the layman looks at the excitement. Leah Goethe's technique, in the eyes of an ordinary magister, was just a re-refining of a magic card. But Bruno recognized at a glance that it was a mysterious method of blood sacrifice, and the person who was proficient in this method, his face was slightly pale and he walked faster and faster. It was not until Joseph Bruno's figure had completely disappeared that Leah Goethe began to hesitate. Although she had used the blood spider seal to seal the communication function of the door card, she still could not escape the fact that Professor Shi Erfu had discovered it. However, she could not figure out how Professor Shi Erfu had found out that it was her. In theory, she shouldn't have exposed even the slightest trace of her true body. Did Midya betray me? Impossible. Leah Goethe. No, Ophelia Bullard rejected the idea almost immediately. Midya had no reason to betray her. But if it wasn't Midya, then who could it be? Ophelia took a step forward as she muttered to herself. In any case, this was not a place to stay for long. As for Professor Shi Erfu's notice, she didn't think that I would go just because she sent me a notice, did she? Half an hour later, in Professor Shi Erfu's office, Ophelia Bullard knocked on the door. The end of the Easter Duel Festival did not make the festive atmosphere disappear. After the students left the duel hall, they divided into two groups. One group went to Travelers Street, while the other went to the cafeteria. Although the cafeteria's dinner still came with Easter eggs, most of the students lost interest in the cafeteria's Easter eggs after getting the boiled eggs twice in a row. It just so happened that the competition had ended, so they might as well go to Travelers Street to enjoy the activities. Therefore, fewer students chose the cafeteria. Dake and his group chatted and laughed, but they still entered the cafeteria. The halfling chefs in the cafeteria found the blonde boy with the bat familiar in the queue. They could not help but lower their heads and talk to him for a while. When it was Dake's turn, the halfling auntie in charge of managing the Easter eggs winked at him, then took out an egg with red petals painted on it and put it in the pile under his eyes. Looking at the halfling auntie's blatant cheating, Dake was stunned. The halfling auntie congratulated him. Congratulations on winning the championship. Dake suddenly understood. Then, without being pretentious, he directly reached out and took the Easter egg. Of course, the little demon beast did not forget to pick one. The cafeteria's menu tonight was very sumptuous. There were large plates of meat on the plates in the window. The rich aroma of meat filled the air, mixed with the aroma of desserts. When Dake was picking food, he also found a bottle of fruit wine. In this world, there was no rule that minors were not allowed to drink. But in order to protect the students, the fruit wine provided by the cafeteria had very low alcohol content. Dake casually picked a bottle and put it on the plate, then continued to look for food. In any case, he won the championship, so he was ready to reward himself well. So, there was more and more meat on the plate. But when he turned around with his plate full of meat, he was shocked to find that among the three people behind him, two of them actually had small mountains of meat on their plates. He lowered his head and looked at his plate, then raised his head and looked at the plates in the hands of Diana and Panduola. He could not help but sigh. People really couldn't be compared to each other. At noon, Diana and Panduola still restrained themselves because they were not familiar with each other. But tonight, they were completely open. Besides, as long as they used the excuse of celebrating Dake's championship, it would not be strange even if they took more meat. So, on the dining table of the four people, a mountain of meat was quickly piled up. The little demon beast stood on the table and looked up at the mountain of meat with a confused expression. Beside it was Panduola's tamed demon, young winged dragon. It had a greedy look, and there was a sleepy chinchilla at the corner of its mouth. Then, let's open the egg first. Dake moved the egg with red petals in front of his eyes. He could not wait. Okay, let's open the egg first. Panduola responded, but did not touch its egg. Instead, it just stared at Dake. Dake looked around and found that everyone was staring at him, not only the three people at the same table, but also the students at the next table. Hey, don't hesitate, hurry up. A senior student from the Night Academy shouted impatiently. The rest of the people agreed. Dake could not help but laugh. It seems that everyone wants to know what this cheating egg will contain. Diana held it in for a long time, and finally could not help but say, It must be a phoenix egg. Luo Si whispered. Didn't I tell you? There are no phoenix eggs. Dake persuaded. You'll know when you break it open. Thus, he pulled down and actually took out one of the prizes, the small golden hammer, and smashed it hard at the egg. Pa! Dake had opened many eggs over the course of the day, but the shell of this egg was undoubtedly the hardest. He hit it so hard, but only a small crack appeared. He frowned, put more strength into it, and hit it 2 more times. But after 2 more hits, only 2 more cracks appeared. Inject magic, Panduola reminded. Dake injected magic into the small golden hammer, and hit it hard. It actually activated the magic circle on the hammer. A 7-colored halo instantly spread out, attracting even more attention. Immediately after, the goose egg-sized colored egg shattered. Dozens of eyes instantly focused on it. In the remaining 1/3 of the eggshell, a teardrop-shaped gem slowly rose, emitting a fiery red light. What is this? A fire elemental gem? As the discussion started, the gem suddenly burst into flames, and the surrounding temperature rose rapidly. Pa-ji! Panduola casually grabbed it, and extinguished the gem's flames. She took the ruby in front of her, looked at it, and handed it to Dake. She smiled and said, Unexpectedly good stuff, don't lose it. Dake took the gem, and without looking at it, stuffed it into his card bag. Then, let's eat. The incident of Dake Dim-ing opening a gem from the egg in the cafeteria was just a small episode during dinner. As he quickly put away the gem, the people around him quickly skipped over it, and started chatting. Panduola, Anna, Luo Si, and the little fiend monster all opened their own eggs after that. The little fiend monster actually opened another credit voucher. Although it was only a 30-point credit voucher, it was enough to make it happy. In this way, the little fiend monster collected another 200 credits. It happily shared the meat with the young pterosaur, who was also a familiar, and was in a very good mood. With the little fiend monster's influence, the atmosphere here became more and more pleasant. The mountain of meat on the table was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Anna ate until her mouth was full of oil. Panduola was gentle, but her eating speed was not slow at all. Dake already knew about her appetite, so he was not surprised. When the meal was finished, it was already 8 o'clock in the evening, and the 4 left the cafeteria in satisfaction. It was a Sunday night, and it was rare to have free time. After the 4 left the cafeteria, they did not return to the dormitory, but slowly walked along the road of the castle, treating it as digestion after the meal. Unknowingly, they came to the Lovers' Bridge between the castles. They held the railings of the bridge, felt the night wind blowing, and squinted to look at the night scenery. The surroundings were very quiet. Probably because most people went to the Traveler's Street, there was no one to disturb the Lovers' Bridge tonight. The young boys and girls enjoyed the quiet atmosphere, as if there was a gap in the flow of time, engraving an unchanging picture. After a while, Dake was the first to speak. Senior, the experiment you mentioned before. Panduola lifted her hair and said softly, A small experiment, I will call you when I need you. Dake nodded and did not ask any more questions. Panduola said again, The gem you opened in the cafeteria has a drop of fire attribute magic sealed in it. Is it really a phoenix? Anna's eyes lit up, and she was pleasantly surprised. Panduola said slowly, Not necessarily, but since it is one of the rewards given to the winners by the Academy, that magic beast's level can't be low. Otherwise, just a drop of blood would not be able to emit such strong fire element waves. I suggest you ask the professor directly. Dake nodded. Then I will ask Professor Ka-Zayer tomorrow. Panduola asked again, You seem to have a good relationship with the professors? Dake smiled. Panduola said, It is good to have a good relationship with the professors, but you can't rely on them too much. I think you can balance it well. Dake. Of course. Panduola's eyes showed a trace of laziness, and then she took a deep breath, causing ripples in her heart. She said, It's getting late, I should go. You guys should rest early too. Then she took 2 steps back, waved at the 3, and said with a smile, Good night. Dake and the other 2 smiled and waved back, Good night. Hey! After Panduola left, Anna became lively again. She said excitedly, "Where are we going next?" "Dake. Back to the dorm." "Anna. Dake smiled. "I mean, we can sit in the common room." Luo Si took Anna's hand, and smiled as they walked to the bridge. "Let's go." The three returned to the tower of the aristocrat house, and then sat in the common room for a while until Luo Si showed obvious signs of tiredness, and then returned to the dorm. "See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow." Dake pushed open the door of room 201, a trace of tiredness in his eyes. Continuous high-intensity magic duels were actually very exhausting for the duelist, especially in terms of mental strength. After he entered the room, he first summoned Magician Secretary, and then handed over the important task of summoning the other magic spirits to it. He then threw himself onto the bed without caring about his image. Feeling the coldness of the blanket against his cheek, he only closed his eyes for a while, and then accidentally fell asleep. When he suddenly woke up, he subconsciously sat up, and saw that the hour hand on the wall clock had already turned to 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. It's already 11 o'clock. Dake was suddenly startled, and then he subconsciously looked around. The magic spirits that were quietly working all turned to look at him. However, Dake's gaze swept across their faces, and he was still confused. It's true. Nothing happened at all. Then what did Professor Midya mean by reminding me? Or did something really happen, and I just didn't notice it? Or... He sat there thinking for a while, and then he suddenly remembered that today was the first day of April. He mechanically picked up the magic brain dropper, and extracted a drop of greed from his brain. After this duel festival, greed had indeed grown a lot. In short, the main goal for this month is to make greed 3, everything else can be delayed. I still have 2 points of greed from last month, and with today's 5 points, it's 5 points. I still need 5 more days to gather 10 points. That means, I can start making it next weekend. After absorbing the greed, Dake injected it into the worm branch, and then he organized his harvest today, and placed the models of the little demon beast, the Diru beast, and the pure white dragon maiden on the bookshelf. As for the monster model, he temporarily put it in the drawer. After that, he washed up normally, returned to bed, and soon fell asleep again. Perhaps it was because of the fatigue from the duel, or perhaps it was because he didn't want to wake his master up. Tonight, the enchanted fairies didn't go into his bed. As for Dream Demon, Lion Beast, and Meow Meow, they were kept in the magic card as usual, and then placed on the small shelf on the table. Lion Beast sat cross-legged in the magic card, but it didn't sleep. It felt very guilty about almost being controlled by the parasitic demon seed in the duel today, and it attributed it to its lack of willpower. Even though it had a sure kill skill like Heart of Justice, it wasn't immune to this level of mental interference. It really didn't deserve the hero title. Unlike the Diru beast that didn't care about this, Lion Beast was actually quite concerned about the so-called hero's potential. It hoped that it could live up to its name and become a true hero who could protect everyone. But today's experience proved that it was still lacking. But after realizing its shortcomings, how could it make up for it? The Lion Beast was confused about this. Just as it was deep in thought, there was a familiar movement beside it. Dream Demon's magic card glowed. It didn't care at first. In the past, the Dream Demon would sneak out from the magic card almost every night. It was already used to it. Until the light from the magic card became stronger and stronger. Chapter 407. The light was so strong that the entire dormitory was lit up in an instant. The magic elves who were sleeping soundly on their small beds were awakened at the same time. Their lively eyes instantly opened and turned their heads to look at the table. The movement in the bedroom woke Dake up in a daze. He forced his eyelids open and was dazzled by the bright light. What happened? After the initial confusion, Dark suddenly became alert and sat up half of his body. The source of the bright light was very obvious. As long as he adjusted to the light, he would be able to see the magic card on the table. Dream Demon. Dake's heart skipped a beat. He immediately lifted the blanket and got out of bed. The night was cold in early spring. Fortunately, his pajamas were thick enough. He stepped on his slippers and walked to the table in a few steps. He reached out to grab the Dream Demon magic card. Remember in 1 second. https://m. Vipkanchu. VIP. The magic elves who reacted faster also got out of bed. The Diru beast reached out to grab his sword and jumped down. In a flash, he was already beside Dake. Afterward, the fairy Ibu and the little demon beast also came one after another. They looked at the glowing magic card cautiously. The magic wave emitted from the magic card gave people a very bad feeling. Dake's finger touched the magic card at this moment. Just that moment of contact, it was as if he was electrocuted. His finger jerked back. Hiss. What's going on? The Diru beast jumped on the table and asked hurriedly. Dake's eyes darkened, but he could only answer, I don't know. He really didn't know. The Dream Demon's change came without warning. He didn't get any useful information from the touch just now. The surface of the Dream Demon card was blazing white. He couldn't see anything. If it was the lion beast that changed, he would have a clue. Thinking of this, he suddenly noticed that the lion beast was anxiously looking inside the magic card. It wasn't dormant like, meow meow. It's okay. Dake comforted the lion beast. He slightly adjusted the angle of the shelf so that it could see the Dream Demon magic card. Then, he summoned the magician secretary, and had it use the usual summoning spell to summon the lion beast. He took out the magic pen and prepared to probe further. Me. Hurry up. Bzzz bzzz. All the magic elves gathered around and looked at the Dream Demon's magic card worriedly. Their cries made Dake even more cautious. He only infused a trace of magic into the magic pen and carefully approached the Dream Demon's magic card. When they touched again, the feeling of being electrocuted did not appear. This made Dake feel slightly more at ease. He manipulated the magic power to flow out of the pen tip and made contact with the magic card. It was also at that moment that the magic power suddenly trembled. That slight but extremely high-frequency vibration flowed back along the shaft of the pen. Dake's eyes flashed. This time, he gripped the pen tightly and infused even more mana into it. Almost in an instant, that vibration was completely engulfed by the torrent of magic power. Dake succeeded in infusing the magic power into the Dream Demon's magic card. Then, he immediately felt the magma-like heat and softness of the magic card. Demon me. The painful groan from the Dream Demon was fed back from the magic card. Dake's heart raced, but he forced himself to calm down and continued to use his magic power to explore. However, it was very difficult for magic power to feed back specific things. He searched in the magic card for a long time and only felt that the environment in the card was in an extremely dangerous situation. It was like the inside of a volcano that was about to erupt. There was an indescribable pressure, and the Dream Demon living in it was like being trapped in the middle of a volcano. She was being roasted by the high temperature and thick smoke until she was weak and powerless, desperate and in pain. Dake wanted to continue to investigate the bottom of the volcano, when suddenly, a sharp pain was transmitted back along with the magic power. He instinctively let out a scream and took a step back. His whole body was covered in cold sweat. Me? Fairy Ibu anxiously wrapped around Dake's arm. The other magic elves were also nervous. They might be of great help to Dake in battle and in life. However, in this situation that involved magic and magic, there was nothing they could do. Tonight's inexplicable change made them more or less at a loss. Squeak! Ibu raised her head, her little face scrunched up like a fried dough twist. Logically speaking, she should be the one with the most knowledge about magic among all the magic elves. However, there was nothing she could do now. This made her very uncomfortable. It's okay. Dake patted Ibu's ribbon tentacles and used it to soothe her. Then, he thought for a moment and said in a low voice, The Dream Demon was affected by a special power, but I have no clue. That power made her feel pain and fear. It made a dream demon feel fear. Go find the professor, the little demon beast suddenly said. Find the professor if you can't solve a problem. The little demon beast was clearly very familiar with troubling others. Dake raised his head to look at the little demon beast. He couldn't help but think of Panduola's words about not relying on the professor too much. However, he didn't hesitate to throw this thought away and decisively said, "Let's go." Dake was very fast. After making his decision, he immediately put all the magic cards into his card bag. Before leaving, he also picked up Paradise. In a situation where there were no magic elves watching over the dorm, he wouldn't leave Paradise behind. After putting Paradise into his card bag, Dake took the magic pen and the Dream Demon magic card, quickly changed his shoes, and left. The magic elves behind him also swarmed out. The polymorph turned into half-human form and hugged the trash slime. The magic guide secretary, floating in the air, had the lion beast magic card between the pages and was still summoning. The Diru beast and fairy Ibu stood on Dake's left and right side. The other magic elves also followed behind them. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Hoo-hoo anxiously called out. Dake waved his hand and put it back into the magic card. Then, this family majestically walked to the entrance of the corridor. But which professor should I go to? Or perhaps, it would be better to find Sister Ka-Lien? Dake pondered as he walked. He quickly went down the stairs and arrived at the common lounge. The magic lamp in the common lounge sensed someone's arrival and automatically lit up. He quickly passed through the lounge without stopping and came to the door. Then, he suddenly realized that it was already late at night. What time is it? Dake suddenly turned his head to look at the clock on the wall. The hour hand and the minute hand of the clock almost coincided. There wasn't much time left until 12 o'clock sharp. His expression suddenly changed and he fiercely opened the door of the tower. Creak! As the door opened, the night wind whistled in. A few magic guide fairies quietly shivered. The feathered snake demon guarding the tower instantly opened its eyes and a faint light appeared. Dake felt the demon's gaze and raised the Dream Demon magic card slightly and said in a low voice, "Find the professor, it's urgent." The feathered snake demon's eyes flashed and slowly closed its eyes. Dake immediately breathed a sigh of relief and rushed out of the bridge. He knew that the feathered snake demon still wouldn't let him in after the curfew time, but it wasn't 12 o'clock yet and he was only going out. There was room for discussion. He walked while observing the Dream Demon magic card. The light emitted by this magic card wasn't as strong as before, but the frequency of flickering had become very fast. It gave people a very urgent feeling, as if something was brewing. If he couldn't deal with it in time, the future would be irreversible. This made him feel more and more urgent. From the time he was awakened by the sudden appearance of the strong light until now when he walked out of the tower, not much time had passed. He was almost doing whatever he thought of, and there was very little room for thinking. Sister Ka-Lien, Professor Shi Erfu, Professor Li Li, or Professor Ka-Zair. At the most critical moment, Dake finally chose Professor Ka-Zair. He sped up and rushed toward the dormitory where the professors lived. The cold wind whistled past him. The castle was terrifyingly quiet as it was close to 12 o'clock. If it weren't for the many magic elves following him, it would be creepy. Beep. Non-certified unit discovered. Non-certified unit discovered. Arrest. Arrest. The heavy cavalry demon statue that suddenly appeared in front of Dake made him frown. D. He was just about to order the Diru beast to end the battle quickly when a gust of wind suddenly swept past him. The lion beast that had just appeared from the summoning light rushed forward quickly. "Let me do it." The lion beast's steady and reliable voice resounded through the passage. Doc lowered his head abruptly and rushed through the gap between them. The heavy cavalry was instantly knocked down by the lion beast. Not long after, the lion beast returned to the formation again. Its magic power did not decrease by much. However, no matter whether it successfully defeated the heavy cavalry or just shook it off, Dake did not ask. There were no more obstacles on the road after that. When he was about to reach the teacher's dormitory, the Dream Demon magic card that he had been holding in his hand suddenly changed. The originally white light gradually burned into a scarlet color and began to gather toward the center. When he reacted, the light emitted from the Dream Demon magic card had already turned into a scarlet beam of light. It was as thick as a bowl and shot directly toward the wall. Dake instantly stopped. His gaze followed the beam of light to the wall of the castle hesitantly. Then, he quickly moved the magic card and found that the beam of light was always pointing in the same direction as it moved. Is this guiding me to a certain place? Dake's gaze sank and he injected magic power into his fingertips. The familiar electric shock quickly came, but he crushed it with force and once again probed his magical power into the Dream Demon's magic card. This time, the injection of magic power brought about a completely different feeling from before. There was no heat and pressure before the eruption of a volcano. Instead, it produced a kind of warmth and comfort, as if the body was in the soft touch of a mother's embrace. It made one unable to help but feel nostalgic and immersed in it. As for the Dream Demon in the magic card, it was like a baby curled up in swaddling clothes, sleeping soundly with its eyes closed. From the abyss of suffering, it became comfortable and stable in an instant. The change was so big that Dake began to doubt his own feelings. The scarlet beam of light was gradually fading, but if one were to sense it carefully, they could still feel the guidance of magic power. He looked at the direction the beam of light was pointing, and then glanced at the teacher's dormitory under the dark night sky. He suddenly realized that the main event of Easter was probably really here. But what was the main event? What did it have to do with the Dream Demon? Why did the Dream Demon magic card have such a change? Dake turned his head abruptly and continued to rush toward the teacher's dormitory. No matter what it was, he could always get more clues after discussing it with the professors. He was not afraid of taking risks, and he was also very good at eating melons. If this matter did not affect the safety of the Dream Demon, he might follow the guidance of the beam of light and explore it alone. But there was no if. While thinking about this, Dake had already arrived in front of the teacher's dormitory. But when he was about to take the next step, his whole body suddenly froze. Because this step, no matter what, he could not take it. There was something invisible blocking in front of him, completely blocking the possibility of him wanting to continue moving forward. Dilu Beast. Roger. The moment the voice was transmitted, the Dilu Beast whispered softly and pulled out its sword from its sheath. The cold light was as cold as water. Its eyes focused, waving away the magic fairy beside it and instantly moving forward. Relying on the accumulated power of the step sprint, the sword with astonishing momentum fiercely slashed into the void above. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The air in front of him suddenly trembled. The invisible wall rippled. Dake's expression became serious. He found that the air wall in front of him, where the ripples radiated, formed an inwardly curved arc. Rather than saying that it was a wall in front of the teacher's dormitory, it was more like a spherical barrier covering the entire castle. And the dormitory building where the professors lived was just outside the barrier. The sword that the Dilu Beast slashed on the barrier did not leave any trace on it. Dake's heart quickly sank. What happened in this castle? Looking down from the top of the sky, the moonlight shone on the castle, and there was a slight distortion in a few places. Not only the teacher's dormitory, all the dormitory towers were separated by the invisible barrier. The only tower that was located within the barrier was the spiral clock tower in the center of the castle. The huge needle in the clock face turned clockwise. The grinding sound of gears became clearer in the extremely quiet night. At the top of the spiral clock tower, the witch who stopped the pumpkin carriage at the top of the tower, the guide of fate, the diviner of the eyes of stars, the witch of the silver moon, Midya Bartholomew, opened the curtain of the carriage and leaned half of her body out of the window, looking down at the entire castle with great interest. The silver moon was reflected in her eyes, shining brightly. Midya, are you going to start? Another person's voice came from the carriage. Midya Bartholomew slightly narrowed her eyes, enjoying the breeze, intoxicated in the throbbing night. Her voice was as charming and seductive as ever. Yes, the wheel of time and space has begun to turn. At night, I took Grandma to the hospital to see an emergency. When I came back, it was already very late. I finally finished writing. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.